Welcome, everyone, to the June Town of Ocean Ridge Commission meeting. Tracy, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Askov,
Present.
Vice Mayor Bonfiglio,
Here.
Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Magruder,
Here.
and Mayor Pugh.
Here. Okay, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, see before you the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, modifications to the agenda?
Yeah, I got a question on item number 18. Are we going to be removing that from the agenda for deferral to P and Z? Is this the appropriate time to ask to do that?
Yeah, we want to go ahead and, if you want to postpone it
Postpone
to the July meeting, we can. And if people in the audience who want to speak on that, they still can at the public comment portion.
it.
And the reason being, just so we're all on the same page, because it seems it would be the right way to proceed, because we have the workshop with the planning and zoning the 19th? 19th.
Yes.
Mayor, may I?
Yes.
In order to record that properly, we will have to have a motion and a second and a vote when that item comes up to defer it to a date certain.
Okay, well
That
then
way,
let's,
the notice requirements will be
well
covered.
then let's do this.
Okay.
Let's move it to item number 11, or action item 12, and make 12, 12B. Because you say it's got to be an action item?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'm going to request that you withdraw item 12 from the agenda altogether.
Wow, this is like coming together very well.
We get to go home early.
All right, so we're removing item 12. Confirm the appointment of Cindy Sabia, and we'll replace it with item 18 in item 12's place. Okay?
Okay.
We have a motion for that?
I'm sorry?
We still need a motion.
Well, yeah, once we get done with, on the modifications.
We'll do it at 12.
All right, what else?
I think that's it. From me anyways.
Okay? Remember
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
the motion and second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, public comment. Yes, sir.
I am giving the town manager a little article that was printed in today's Sun Sentinel for you. Ted Ricciardo, 4 Hudson Avenue, Ocean Ridge. I had to deal with an issue with a complaint from my tenant on Sailfish Lane on Saturday afternoon, and Sergeant David Kurtz was the one that handled it. These things are love-hate things. These are about the gas-powered leaf blowers. They can be real efficient, but they can be a real pain in the neck too if they're not used properly. And my neighbor does a good job of my tenant does a good job of taking care of things over there. And he called to complain to me that everything was getting blown onto his residence, my property, from the neighbors' lawn people. So I happened to be out on the road when he called, so I headed over there. And when I got there, the sergeant was already there. And the landscaper went berserk. And he got really irate, he got really nasty, it was not a good situation. And in the police report that the sergeant filed, it ends up saying that he told them to make sure that he is not blowing debris onto the roadway, which I'm sure is in our town ordinance somewhere, our codes. But is there something in the code that says you shouldn't be blowing it on the neighbor's property also? Does anybody know that? But here's my point.
Depends on your relationship with your neighbor.
Well, if you don't live there, it's not really your neighbor. But maybe we should try and make these guys more aware of the fact to blow the stuff back on the property they're working on. Because these things don't really do anything except move around the debris. They don't remove it. This article, I'll save you the effort. I'm going to read from the second page because there are municipalities that are taking action. And I'm not saying that we should ban these things. I don't think we should ban them, but I think we should have, if someone's having a problem, I think we should have a little bit more strength behind enforcing what we need to have for the town. And that's not blowing it on your neighbor's property and not blowing it on the roadway. But on the second page, in the fourth paragraph down, or the third paragraph down, it says, the leaves and grass clippings get blown away temporarily, but then they come back like taxes and dirty laundry. In the next paragraph, it says, Palm Beach recently passed a ban on gas-powered blowers on properties of less than 1 acre, despite opposition from landscaping companies who said their livelihoods would be affected. Key West is drafting a proposal. South Miami commissioners voted down a plan to regulate the annoying racket, but are considering tougher noise ordinance. Coral Gables Commissioner Ralph Cabrera introduced a ban several years ago, but irate citizens complained about the government's infringement on private domains and possible increase in lawn service fees, and the proposal was tabled. So again, I'm just asking if there's anything we can do to, maybe make the residents more aware of the fact that these guys are making your property dirtier than when they arrived. Is there anything we can do?
Well, I'm sure in the ordinance, there's ordinance that you can't affect your neighbor's property with what you're doing on your property. Whether it's trash or anything like that. Chief, any idea? Give me a
I would
hand
look
on
at
that.
it on a case-by-case basis. I don't think that anybody's allowed to deposit litter or debris or place anything on someone else's property without their permission.
Yeah, my tenants,
I understand that you're saying it's a blade of grass this big, but it's not, it's a whole bunch. So I would say that just our general ordinances would prohibit that. We have to go, it's an ordinance, so it has to be committed in the officer's presence for us to enforce it, but we need the resident to call us like you did and address the issue, and perhaps that's it. Education of those that are the problem and not blanket notification, because most of the landscape people here understand that they need to blow it back in. They may blow it into the road and then blow it back, but the blowers are designed to be easy brooms for hard surfaces, not for lawns, and they're using them to rake, and that's an improper use of them, so.
but it is,
Case by case basis,
yeah.
call us, we'll respond. If the landscaper doesn't like it,
Yeah, my
They'll
tenant
voice their
actually
opinion.
felt bad calling you guys over this, but,
I
it's,
tell people all the time, I would rather you call us and feel bad than not call us at all and come and report it to here.
that's what I'll tell them.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
thanks, Ted. Yes, ma'am.
So, now, is this where I could speak about the ordinance?
Yes, you can. if you
Okay.
like. Actually, you could at it now or at number 12. Only one, but only one. Thank you, Terry.
Does it
But it
matter?
should probably doesn't
Now
really
that I'm
matter, yeah.
here, does it
Go
matter?
ahead.
Okay, Polly Jo at 35 Hersey Drive. So I've read the ordinance, the proposed ordinance, and the notes from the May Town Commission meeting. The ordinance has been described as a courtesy review. Anything can be said, but the only thing that matters is what is in writing. So 5 years down the road, a new board, a new whatever, it's not a courtesy review now, it's a mandatory requirement.
Why,
I mean, the interpretation of harmonious architecture and colors and spacing of windows and, I mean, all of that is very subjective in my opinion. At the May meeting, when there was a discussion of the construction project at 6029 Old Ocean, Mark Marsh said that the project met all building codes, all zoning codes, but, and his words were, the new addition exaggerates the height on the east side and doesn't complement the house. And my question would be then, would that have been a project that would have been denied if this new ordinance is put in place?
is that a question to us or is it a comment?
That's a comment. I mean, I don't think you can answer that right now, but I think that's a question that needs to be answered before this ordinance is passed.
I think that's what the purpose of the workshop is.
Okay,
Because there is questions that have come up after the first reading of the ordinance that there need to be answered before we do it the second time and actually put it in on the books.
I hope you don't put it in on the books. I
Well,
guess
that's
that's
the-
my point. I mean, I understand that there was a conversation, a comment about we're the only community that doesn't have an architectural review board, but I think if some of those other communities are visited and the trouble that they've had with them and some of the conflict that's arisen, do we want to take that on?
Which is something that should be discussed among commissioners and at the workshop.
At the workshop?
Yeah, because at least that way, all the concerns can come out, and then everybody has, and the public as well, can have discussion regarding it, and then at that point, we'll know maybe it's not a good idea.
So the workshop is going to be open to the public?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Then I will bring my questions.
Great.
Okay,
See you there, Polly.
all right, thank you.
Come on up, Ed.
Ed Brooks, 15 East Ocean Avenue, Ocean Ridge. I have two issues. Do I get 6 minutes? No. I have to agree with Polly. I didn't know you were going to table this, but it doesn't make a lot of sense for the town at how far down the road we are. I mean, you're setting up a keeper of good taste. And like Polly said, it's very subjective. I think I have the best taste in town. And I'm sure everybody here thinks they are. I mean, just for an example, take Hudson, where Mark lives. You have a very modest house on the southwest corner of A1A. You have a very large house on the northwest corner. You have very, very large contemporary homes on the intercoastal. You have very modest homes up and down the street. What is the standard of Hudson? What review do you do on that specific street? That's just one example. This is something you should have addressed 20 years ago. I mean, that horse is so far out of the barn. And as Polly was saying, who really becomes a keeper of good taste? And taste changes, colors change. You know, yellow was hot, now something else is hot. So I think this is something that's long gone. But what I wanted to address, and I haven't been to a lot of the last couple of meetings, but reading the minutes and looking at the agenda, you know, there's a lot of town north of Adams and west of A1A, and it doesn't seem to be addressed. Everything in the minutes and on the agenda has to do with a very specific part of town. And you're asking us to foot the bill for extra police for the beach. Well, I would want to put on the agenda, I would like to have extra police stopping speeders on my street, on Ocean Avenue. I mean, it's my tax dollars. I think I should have as much in the game as people that live on the beach. Everything that you're doing is making it harder for the citizens of the town to use the beach. Making streets one way, no loading, no unloading. And then you go back to the citizens and say, oh, by the way, we want you to foot the bill for more police for the beach. But you're making it more difficult for us to use the beach. I don't quite, well, I do understand the motivation. You know, I'm not naive. But there's a lot more town than where you all happen to live. And I just don't think it's fair to come to us and ask us to foot the bill for more police when there's more police needed in other parts of the town that I see nowhere on any of these agendas. You know, you want to make one street one way. Some citizens are saying, well, don't improve the crosswalks. That'll make it too attractive. Well, you know, I'd like to go to the beach. I like an attractive crosswalk. I live here. I pay my taxes. I don't quite get it anymore that the town commission is so myopic on a very, very 5 to 6 block area. It's not fair, and it's frankly not correct, and it's not right. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Ed. Any other public comment? Terry?
Terry Brown, Harbor Drive South. Boy, these off-season meetings are getting exciting, aren't they? What I wanted to comment on a positive note is that today there was a City of Boynton Beach employee, who we all love, City of Boynton Beach, they provide water service, was marking the water service along our street. And I know that the town manager had been working along with me on replacing a telephone pole that's leaning. And lo and behold, it's now on the schedule. The guy could not tell me when it was going to happen, and it's not exactly part of the hardening and smart technology that's going on along A1A with the automatic feeder switch. I guess you all know about that. You see the poles out there. But anyway, I wanted to be sure you knew that town manager was working on that, and it was a positive thing. So whatever points that gets him, you can give it to him. You're writing them down? As far as this ordinance goes, and I know that there needs to be a lot of additional discussion, but one of the things that you need to think about is on the south end of town, where south of Tropical, I guess the line is, where that section of town was annexed later, and it was a special grandfathered clause in the code. It's called the Blue Ocean subdivision? Is that
I believe
correct?
so.
Gail would know. Well, all the lots are small, so the setbacks are different, the floor area ratio is different in the code. But if someone were to come in to buy up 2 to 3 lots in there, they'd have to come in for a unification of title, right? So who approves unification of title? That's not a review board, that would be a town commission, is that right? Probably 1 meeting or 2 meetings, where a homeowner comes, and we've done unification of titles before in this town to increase, in fact, the Moundek house was split into 2 lots, and then when he purchased it, he came in, or his representatives came in, and they unified the 2 lots back together again. Any of us remember any of that? So you can get a unification of title and increase the size of the quote lot. The old lot doesn't exist, you have a new lot. So my point is that if you built a house, even though you used all of the current code, the setback requirements on side and back and front, and you did the height and the floor area ratio, it wouldn't fit in, would it? I mean, it wouldn't fit into that neighborhood. So at what point does it get reviewed if you have this type of ordinance? It might be the most beautiful house that everybody loves, but in terms of size and scale, it wouldn't, quote, fit.
Great point for the workshop.
That's right. You see that? I have to give someone else credit secretly that brought that up.
Just for your information, I was on P and Z when we did that entire rewrite and looked at that. One of the reasons for these larger FARs and the setbacks and things of that was that we recognized the structures there in the south end were a lot older and getting closer to end of life. And so we wanted to encourage people to maybe buy a couple of lots, unify the title, and build a bigger, newer home down there. That was one of the reasons behind, you know, the overlay there that we.
Well, the overlay goes back to when the property was annexed in the town.
For the special
Yeah,
rules,
yeah.
though, regarding that district.
Right.
So-
But what my point is, in terms of this ordinance, it might not fit, and all the other neighbors might say, well, I live in a little duplex, I live in a little 2-bedroom house. That place doesn't fit in. So you're gonna have a problem, but that wouldn't get reviewed until later, right? Anyway, just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Anyone else for public comment? Well, thank you, everyone. All right, moving on to the approval of consent agenda. Is there any-
I would like to remove from the consent agenda the item number 4, adopting the job descriptions for the clerk, deputy town clerk, and building clerk and administrative assistant.
Okay, we can need to move that to, I guess we can put that at 18, because that's going to be a action item.
Yes, I think we need to talk about that issue, those issues. All right, thank you.
So number 4. Anybody make a motion for the approval of consent agenda as it stands now?
I move to approve the consent agenda as amended with the deletion of item number 4 and putting it on the regular agenda.
Second.
Motion and second, any other discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, announcements and proclamations. The Town Commission and Planning and Zoning Commission will meet in a joint workshop to discuss items relative to the Land Development Code on June 19, 2017 at 8:30 a.m., and the public is invited. Town administrative offices will be closed on Tuesday, July 4th, in observance of Independence Day. And the regular Town Commission meeting in July has been moved to Monday, July 10th. All right, Town Commissioner comments. Begin with Steve. Discussion regarding one-way status of Beachway Drive East to West.
Yeah, both items tie together.
Okay,
Maybe I can give this to
A
Tracy.
and B.
Yeah. So for those who have been going to the meetings regularly, you know that down in the Beachway area, we have an increasing problem. As Ed brought up, he also has the same on Ocean Avenue with the speeders. So, thanks to the police, we've had some increased police presence. Private owners did actually hire off-duty police for, I think it was about 6 weekends. What we have going on there is everyone from Boynton comes into Ocean Ridge through Ocean or through Beachway. And what they're now doing is creating a traffic hazard down at the end of Beachway. They come in, they unload, they're unloading fishing equipment, chairs, coolers, tents, like basically a whole party's worth. They obstruct the intersection, and they're causing the police to have to be down there to try to stop them from doing it. So what the police are doing is they're coming there, they have a presence there, and as I've witnessed myself and numerous neighbors have witnessed, a lot of times the incoming traffic just ignores the police presence, then the police has to get out of the car, go tell them verbally that they can't unload, they can't block the intersection. So we got a two-pronged approach we're trying to do here to help the town. It's not just helping Beachway, because remember, we're also putting money into Ocean Avenue on traffic calming. So the first thing is on the unloading. The police are forced into a position where they have to verbally or with a loudspeaker tell these people they can't unload and load. And then if they're particularly obnoxious about it, they get ticketed. So what we need is to put a sign at Beachway that says, no unloading, loading. And if you can see from, hopefully there's a picture of the crosswalk. On the left side of the crosswalk, there used to be a sign there. It's no longer there. So we need to put a sign in there so that the people coming over from Boynton, and this is an increasing occurrence, this has kind of reached a crescendo point now, and it's going to continue as the developments happen on the other side of the bridge. We need to alert and educate the citizens of Boynton that they can't use Old Ocean as a parking lot / unloading area. So our neighbors, all the neighbors have come to me and asked to get a no unloading, loading sign put there. And also, I think would help the police it. The second thing is the traffic that's coming pounding over the bridge and whistling down Old Ocean, down Beachway. We have now 16 children living on Beachway or around Beachway. As people that have been to the meetings know, there was a 100-pound dog that was killed on Beachway by a car speeding down there. So what I'm requesting of the commission is to make Beachway westbound one way on a temporary basis to see if this ends our speeding problem and also helps with the traffic problem at the end of Beachway, at Beachway and Old Ocean. Obviously some citizens are like, wow, well, Beachway's now one way. Well, the people coming into Beachway are the residents of Beachway. Obviously, they're not going to be able to come in east anymore. And the service trucks and residents that are coming down, or Boynton residents as well, coming down Beachway, going to Old Ocean, and then going to their actual destination street. So they're using Beachway as a thoroughfare to get to Old Ocean, then they're driving down Old Ocean, and then going to Thompson Street, Adams Street, whatever street they're actually is their destination. So that would end, and now they'd be using A1A instead of Old Ocean as their street to get to their destination, which is in the best interest of all of us. So those are the two items. I welcome discussion from the commissioners and any questions that come up.
I have a concern.
Yep.
So no unloading, that would mean somebody that was bringing a spouse or somebody, even a resident, over, who had, say, had a wheelchair or had to be,
The wheelchair's different.
a wheelchair's different, that's not unloading.
No, because there's a Disabilities Act, and if you have a handicap, you are allowed to drop someone off at the crossovers so they can access the beach.
Okay.
So any concern about the handicap doesn't exist.
Okay, but they have to be handicapped
Yeah,
to be dropped off.
correct. And the other point, which is kind of strange when you think about it, the residents of town are now out buying wagons and carts and wheels for their paddle boards. So we're all doing what the law requires of us. Meanwhile, we have residents from out of town that are now doing what we used to do. We used to drive our cars down and unload. We stopped doing it when we realized there was a problem, and the police said that you can't do that, it's blocking traffic. So now the residents of this town that are paying the taxes are buying equipment so they can walk their toys to the beach, and non-residents are just coming down and unloading. Any other questions?
Public comment? Come on, Bob.
Bob Weisblut, 23 Sailfish. I have just the absolute opposite take on what you're talking about. I live on Sailfish. Starting this year, I can't sometimes get out of my street onto A1A because the traffic is backed up. So saying that you don't think cars should be on Old Ocean going north and south, they should be on A1A, is going to make for even worse conditions.
This would have no influence on that whatsoever, Bob. You're talking about the traffic coming from the south, getting to the bridge, which is up, and then backing up down A1A. This would not influence that at all.
I think it will, because you're telling people not to use Beachway, and even if they go the other way, it slows down the traffic and makes it harder for me to even get on A1A.
It would have no influence, Bob, if you think about it. Think about it logically.
I did think about it, and
It's
I'm
when the
telling you,
bridge
this
is
is
up,
my
the traffic
opinion,
backs
that's
up.
all.
Right.
You may disagree, but I've walked Old Ocean, I've said this here, right here, on 2 or 3 occasions. In the 20 years I've been in town, I've walked 10,000 times, and I see one car there. I don't see huge amounts of traffic blocking the intersection of Old Ocean and Beachway. I just don't see it.
Thank you, Bob. Ed?
Ed Brooks, 15 East Ocean Avenue. Must have been an old picture because your barriers weren't up. It's a shame, but Beachway is the biggest street we have. You're basically going to send everybody to Adams. It's not going to go away.
No, you're not going to do that, Ed. Once again, and maybe I'm not explaining this properly. Who is going to go to Adams?
People
The
that wanna get to-
live on Adams.
No.
The people that are trying to get to Thompson,
No,
Corrine, Tropical, they're going to go to their destination street.
no. I'll give you, you're saying people are coming from Boynton over the bridge to go to the beach.
No, this is, well,
They're not?
it's connected. I'm saying service trucks are coming
No,
barreling.
no. Let's concentrate on what you first said.
Yeah.
People from Boynton are coming over using Beachway to unload. Okay, so the people are coming over the Woolbright Bridge to go to the beach. If Beachway becomes one way, they're going to find the first street where they can go east to get to the beach. The only beach they know is that crossover or that access. They're going to go to Adams. Now, Chief, do you think it's better to have the traffic on Adams or the traffic on a bigger street Beachway?
Well,
Remember, it's
You
a,
answered
remember, it's
you
your,
answered your own question.
it's your,
Okay, it doesn't
No, but
make.
there's no unloading on Old Ocean.
But
See,
that,
well, Ed,
why are you harming the citizens and not allowing us, no, it's a wide net you're casting. You can't just say, oh, if you have a sticker, you can't do that. You're saying to all the people in the town, You can't stop, load and unload. There's a stop sign there, correct, Chief?
There is.
Is there a minimum amount of time you have to stop at a stop sign?
Complete
Right.
stop. make
Is
sure
there a
it's safe to
maximum
go.
amount of time?
As long as you're not just sitting there obstructing traffic,
As long as I can stay there till I feel comfortable?
Yeah, well, there is, I mean,
No,
there
but it
is,
doesn't
there
make
is no
sense that-
unloading, well, wait a minute, there is no loading or unloading along all of Ocean Avenue.
And I disagree with that,
No, it's
frankly.
you can ask the chief, it's
So
in
if
the
I
town
can-
ordinance.
If I can clarify, section 62 of the town ordinances, when they were amended, and I think the attorney will hopefully correct me if I misstate anything, there is a provision in there that says that there is no stopping, standing, parking, loading, or unloading at any beach, public beach crossover. We enforce that on a regular basis, as we see the violations, just like we do speeding or anything else.
It's
So,
just, it's just a shame that that's a big street. We can't do anything about that. And it's not true that they're going to go to Adams. People are going to find their way to the beach, to Bob's point, to the closest access point, either north or south.
Right, but the point is to educate Boynton. So let's say
Good
that
luck.
what you're saying is true.
Good luck.
Which won't, I
Good
don't think
luck.
it will be true, but let's say they start going down Adams to unload, right?
Then what do you
Then
do?
the police presence will move to Adams. There's an
You just want to get them
education
off of
process.
your street and put them
No,
on
we
somebody else's
don't, Ed.
street.
That's not the point. You
It
gotta look
seems
at
to-
3,000.
To the people in the audience, the people in town, and maybe I'm wrong, it seems to be the point. It's the biggest street. It's two-way.
It's actually, the biggest street is Ocean.
Okay, but it's the biggest street on the south end of town that gets you to the beach.
We got traffic coming going in Ocean.
We'll have to agree to
traffic coming on
disagree.
Beachway.
They're just going to go to smaller streets, which is going to cause, I think, more possible fatalities. There must have been a lot of accidents at that intersection of Old Ocean and Beachway for this to even come up.
I haven't done those statistics for
Okay,
you yet.
good.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Cheryl?
Cheryl Olenoff, 566 David Lane. I am totally against the one-way, because that would bring everybody down Adams Road, which is very small. And what they'll start doing is unloading on private property. And a lot of people come down Ocean Ave and they come to our beach anyway and unload. And even with a new gate and private property, they still come through and use that beach. And I like the idea of stopping people from loading and unloading so that they don't stop traffic, but the one-way would bring all the traffic down Adams, and Adams is a mess as it is already. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie?
Charles Kittler, 35 Hersey Drive. I believe that Beachway is one of the most dangerous streets we have. And I've not been in an accident there, but I use it regularly. And several times when you're headed westbound and you go straight through there, traffic is turning. If more is done at that intersection, yes, when they come eastbound, everyone's looking to go to the ocean. If we do something to stop that or encourage people to use other areas, because eventually I'm not going to stop for somebody else. I'm going to take my right-of-way and go through, and then my truck gets hit and they get hit. But I've had to yield for people on there in the middle of the intersection there, so it's a dangerous area. Now, I'm aware of how dangerous it is. I've been in some close calls on hitting other people, and I have the right-of-way, so we need to do something with the Beachway area because it's not safe. People come across the bridge and they're either looking to go straight or turn, they don't signal. Let's do something. Let's try something. We can always change it later, but safety and security of this town is your area and our area. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, I have a question.
Sure.
Chief, what is the closest public crossover to Adams? Because the property down at the end of Adams Road on Old Ocean is all private dune area.
On Old Ocean itself, the crossovers, the public crossovers start at Anna Street, the far end. You have a public crossover at Anna, Corinne, Thompson, Porter Street, Beachway, then Diamond Beach, 5450, and then south of Tropical before you get to Ocean View. Those are the public crossovers that actually abut Old Ocean.
Well, what I'm concerned about is where are the people going to go if they go down Adams? And then the police will be down there all the time telling people to get off private property.
The
So,
public beach.
Where's the public beach compared to there? You just
They
heard
go to
him.
the public beach. What we have happening now is with the increased population pressures on Boynton, we have not protected our town and our beaches and our quality of life. So what we're trying to do here is protect that before it gets beyond our control, which is why we're talking about traffic calming, which is why we're talking about no unloading signs, which is why we're talking about one-way streets. And it's something I think Cheryl brought up, which I understand the concern on Adams Street. But the traffic that you're gonna get on Adams Street is actually going to be Beachway residents. And then if you try to look at this in a broader picture, right? So let's say that, and we do the Beachway on a temporary basis. Now you get to Adams Street traffic, right? So let's say we take a look at that situation a couple of months down the road and say, this is creating a problem there. Then we can change Adams Street too. We can't continue to sit back and do nothing about this increased population pressure. And every time we bring up something, whether it be for the north end of town, the center of town, or the south of town, some pocket disagrees with the attempt. But we have to treat this as a town-wide problem. Ocean Avenue and Beachway are the two main points that are under pressure. So once we start there, then we can expand across the town and get a long-range plan in place here.
If may I make a comment? In defense, but not really in defense of Steve's comment. I know he's been working with the citizens along Beachway for quite a while. I too spent some time visiting with folks there and backed off because I wanted Steve to handle it because he lives closer. But we are talking about doing two traffic calmers now with the resurfacing of Beachway. And I suggested, and Tracy, you can put up the picture that I discussed. And yeah, this was a traffic circle that I took a picture of on Key Biscayne down in Miami. And I've talked somewhat to the town engineer, and it seems that we do have the property there to do this on initial look. Now, we haven't really done the survey or anything else. And then I was told by the chief that even if we did that and we got the traffic there, it was all up to Boynton Beach Police Department or Fire Department to see if they could get the fire trucks around the circle. But putting a circle on Old Ocean at that intersection does a couple of things. One, it slows the traffic down. It makes it virtually impossible, but I'm sure Boynton would do it anyway, but it makes it very difficult to do prolonged unloading because you've got traffic going right around in front of the entrance to the beach. So that was one thing that we talked about. It certainly, it adds an appearance. If you put a palm tree or something, it highlights the area. It detracts coming over the bridge from seeing the walkway and so on and so forth. So that's just another idea that's been kicked around as opposed to doing the one-way. It will slow the traffic down with the traffic calmers. It makes it more difficult to stop and unload and whatnot when you got a traffic circle with traffic going around it both ways. So that's my 2 cents worth, and I don't know whether that would pass muster or not. So, but that's another thought. And I guarantee you, for everybody in here, you need to stay awake at night and think of how we can try and slow this down, because you got 350 units or so going up across the bridge, and what's going to happen is it's just going to continue to compound, and it's going to affect all of us. This is the same type of situation that we have with the residents that own property along the beach.
And so it's an Ocean Ridge problem. The people that live and pay taxes for their property on the beach, and they've got people setting up tents and camping right in front of their property and whatnot. That's an Ocean Ridge problem. It's a private property. It's an overflow problem. It's something that every citizen in this town needs to be aware of and kind of help us come up with how do we try and solve these problems. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ted?
Ted Rotoda, 4 Hudson. I'd like to know if, I was driving through Palm Beach this weekend, and I said to myself, you know, they got 3 major arteries that dump into their town. And I'm wondering if the chief is willing to comment at all on how they handled things with keeping a much greater, higher density populated area, West Palm Beach, coming over the island and using the beach there. Obviously, I know they got a section of public beach, but we do too.
Well, they have a big public beach, and they only have, I believe, 2 public crossovers, and one's very hard to find. And I can't remember the other one is.
There are several public crossovers throughout the town of Palm Beach. Most of them are in the far north end or the far south end of town where there is not a public beach per se. So Palm Beach has, in actuality, 3 public beaches. You have, that are owned by the town. You have Clark Beach, which virtually has no parking associated with it. The overflow parking is taken care of by Royal Palm Way or Okeechobee Boulevard corridor south to just by Charlie's Crab and Worth Avenue, where there's metered parking on both sides of the road. Addition to that, there's parking on Worth Avenue, so there's available parking in the area. Is it enough? It hasn't been enough since 1981 when I started working there, up to 2005 when I retired. It's dealt, the issues in Palm Beach are dealt with just like I'm trying to address the issues in Ocean Ridge. And that is on a case-by-case basis, and recognizing that there are certain rights that residents have, and there are certain desires that they have, and that there are certain rights that those of the general public that are not taxpayers of Ocean Ridge have to use the beach. I would look to the commission to see if there's a solution to that they would like to address. We have as much parking directly associated with public beaches as Palm Beach does, I can assure you, in the downtown area. Now, Palm Beach has Phipps Ocean Park, which is metered and considerable parking, very underutilized. And then you have Lake Worth Beach and Crozier Park. Crozier Park is a county park in the town of Palm Beach. More parking. It still doesn't stop people from trying to go to private areas, and I use the air quotes for that because they're not truly private, and unload and go to a quiet portion of the beach in the north end of town through a public crossover. The issue's been addressed over and over. How does Palm Beach deal with the influx of 10,000 to 15,000 people every day that are just coming over there to work in businesses or commerce? You know, it's been going on for years. If you've ever been trying to get into Palm Beach or out of Palm Beach at morning rush hour, lunchtime, or 5 p.m., you'll understand that it's not a pretty dance. I don't think we're to that level yet because we don't have the commercial and we don't have an inflow. I think that if we think that Boynton is going to do that, I think we're going to have to sit with the commission and make some considerable changes to the town of Ocean Ridge. I don't think we're there yet. That's a different animal. That's a different congestion in that particular town in basically, I want to say 5 separate and distinct areas.
I appreciate your thoughts. I don't think we have too many alternatives. We definitely have to somehow keep the parking restrictive, is probably a good word. And personally, I would like to see, I think it would be a huge deterrent to have Steve's proposal of one-way on Beachway as a trial basis and see how that works, because just coming over the bridge and thinking you're seeing a do not enter sign there, it's going to turn people off that don't know the area. It's not going to stop the ones that know. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Ted. Didn't you already talk about this?
A few times. But not tonight, I haven't said anything, have I?
No.
Jerry Brown, Harbor Drive South. Well, there's lots of comments I could make, some of which have already been said, which I won't repeat, that I agree with. But as far as these traffic circles, anyone who's lived in Boston area who went around a rotary will tell you that they're dangerous, and people don't pay much attention to them, especially if you think they're going to have a lot of traffic. You have yield signs, one-way signs, you know, this direction sign. They can be dangerous. And as far as all the traffic coming over the bridge being dumped onto Adams, when you get up to the top of Adams, you have an extremely difficult time in terms of the curvature and the height of Old Ocean at that point. You're crawling up Capri Apartments. You can't see. They have to creep up onto Old Ocean before you can make a left or right turn. It's going to be more dangerous in that area there, and people are going to be whipping to fix an air conditioner back in his neighborhood. They're going to be in a big hurry to get back down the Beachway going the other way. All the service people are going to have to go that way, right? Because you can't have only certain people going in one way. So there's going to be a lot more traffic on Adams, a lot more traffic between Adams and Beachway, dumping back onto Beachway itself. And I think that if you look at some of the studies on roads that have been converted from two-way to one-way, traffic travels much faster down a one-way street than it does on a two-way street. Those people are going to be hauling buggy to that light at North Ocean Boulevard, A1A, to get back over the bridge. You're going to have a big speeding problem there. And if you go back to some of those photos, you see those kids walking along the side of the road who are carrying beach supplies, most of whom I would guess come over the bridge with those on their back, not from the neighborhood.
They were unloading from cars.
No, the people who have, I've seen them. Hundreds of people walking over that bridge
Oh, yeah.
with a beach chair.
We get a lot of people walking.
And you're going to have those people walking in the middle of the road because you don't have a sidewalk and refuse to put in a sidewalk, even though you have 40 feet of right-of-way there. And you're going to have a real dangerous situation, and you're looking for a lawsuit running over some of these people when you have that kind of traffic flow.
To comment on that for a sec here, there's a traffic calming device going in mid-block in the current plan they were still discussing. So that'll hopefully slow down what you're saying. The other thing is, 2 cars on a road takes up a heck of a lot more space than 1 car.
Yeah, but they tend to be slower. You just look at
There'll be a
Lake Worth,
lot
just look at
more
other
for
places.
pedestrians.
They haul butt down one-way streets, and they're gonna want to. They're gonna want to get to that streetlight to go back over the bridge so they can service something somewhere else.
They're doing it already.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Terry. All right, so what's pleasure commission, Jim?
Let me just make one comment. At 63, my memory might be faulty, but I don't recall when I was young, one-way street, one street hump, one other barrier that prevented me from getting to a beach, especially if I knew there were girls at the beach or friends of mine with a cooler and adult beverages in it. With that said, though, if the folks think that this is going to help the situation, I think we can do it on a temporary basis just to see, what effect it has. It didn't do a lot of harm for a temporary basis for mid-lane, and the experiment failed and we removed it, and it's not that costly, so I don't think it's going to hurt us to see what would happen, especially during the off-season. We're not going to impede that much people if we do it during the summer and see, because we're primarily going to affect the residents of Ocean Ridge and see what they seem to think about the barrier and the one-way street. And if it doesn't work, we go back to the other way. I don't think it hurts.
Can we put a time frame on?
I think we did did we do a 6-month time frame on the mid-lane?
Well, that's where I was headed with, if you do one-way west on Beachway, so their traffic is going to go to Adams. They're going to find Mid-Lane Road. They're going to come up Mid-Lane and up Ridge, and then they're going to cross over onto Adams Road without a traffic light. So I'm okay with trying it I'd like to try it for like 3 months instead of 6. 6 seems to be a long time, and it's off-season.
I don't know, 6 months seems to go so fast
Yeah.
anymore.
And you need to-
The thing is, you're forgetting about tropical too. I mean, there's more than one road that goes, you know.
Well,
this you're talking about
Tropical
north.
is as problematic as Adams, just in different,
Either way,
different sense. They're not main roads.
Chief, how long, first you gotta get the signs, put the signs out. And what's usually the procedure to
I
change
would-
traffic pattern on a main artery in town?
I would say that this is considerably different than
Midland.
Midland. This is a two-way thoroughfare that's accessed by a county road, intersected by a state road, that is a traditional signalized intersection that has a straightforward, so I think we would need to look at it before we just decide to do something temporarily and make sure that we're not running afoul of DOT regulations because of where it is along the State Road A1A. This happens to be on a state road right-of-way, which we're going to affect state road traffic, where mid-lane wasn't. So I think that perhaps the manager and I need to consult with them and make sure that we're following the proper steps so that we don't run afoul of some FDOT regulation in that area, and make sure that we can coordinate with Palm Beach County Traffic management on the light that's there, and make sure that we're signalized correctly, and that perhaps the timing of the light will need to be changed because of the changes, and they have engineers that can assist us in looking at it without conducting a full study. And then my request to everyone would be that prior to initiating anything, we do a traffic study with traffic counts on Adams, Tropical, Old Ocean, and Beachway, so that we can have definitive answers to numbers and then know what that calming effect truly is, rather than just guessing at it.
All right, well then, let's do this. Why don't you come up with that plan before the next meeting? Can you do that?
I can certainly try.
We can certainly talk to FDOT and the county about those issues.
Okay,
prior
then
and
that way at
report
the
at
next meeting, we have more information as to how and
This
how
is,
why
in
we get
in my opinion, having been around here for quite some time and having worked here as a police officer for 12 years, and this is a considerable change. And I think that we really need to make sure that we're not causing more problems by doing something temporarily in this particular area, because it is very heavily traveled, north, south, east, and west.
Okay.
Does the town have the ability to, could we give that section or back to the citizens? Is there a possibility of making it a gated community, the Beachway area? Two of the streets, my understanding, are currently owned by the residents already. So what we'd be talking about is two tiny feeder streets, and if those residents were willing to take on that responsibility, it would eliminate that problem. It'd no longer be a thoroughfare. Right now, the concrete pad that sits up at the beach is inviting to people. Even though if it's not large enough for a car, it's still a large concrete pad, and it's the only concrete pad that we have in the town of Ocean Ridge. So anyone would think, well, hey, I could pull over here for just a second. As far as the Beachway residents and gaining access, it's already a difficult situation for those residents if you're heading southbound. You have to use Adams because it's illegal to make a left-hand turn at Beachway. So all the southbound traffic approaching that neighborhood is already using Adams. So how much more are you going to pick up from the northbound? If people are heading northbound, they're probably going to make a right before they get there on Tropical or Douglas or one of these other streets. The intersection, again, is like some others have mentioned, is a little dangerous if you're leaving Beachway and you're turning to the north. If someone's coming at a high rate of speed northbound, they come up on you a little fast because it's a little bit of an angle of a turn. Maybe it's the opportunity for us as a town to look at, we have the park space across the street. Maybe we could have changed the approach of it. Maybe offer the citizens of Beachway a gate there so that only they would be using that. It would allow us to temporarily fence off where Beachway hits Old Ocean Boulevard, so it'll stop the traffic. Ed and I live on Ocean Avenue, and when people make that turn onto Ocean Avenue, it's a race to the bridge. You can hang out there every Sunday morning and listen to the Harleys. I mean, it's wide open till they get that. I've also lived on Tropical, I've lived on Ocean View. Any one of those little streets, people are speeding because they're trying to get to a spot. They're frustrated, they're trying to get back and race around to find. This would eliminate a lot of those, the thoroughfares right away.
Thank you. Cheryl, one last
Don't forget the
comment on this?
sign.
Yes, please.
Cheryl Olenoff, 566 David Lane. There's another problem on Adams Road that hasn't been addressed, and that's people are parking on the street during the day, which makes it only one car can go through there at a time. And they park there all the time with the house, the new house on the corner of David Lane and Adams. People park on the front of there all the time, and there's always cars there. And so now you're going to have increased traffic and trying to get around parked cars.
Thank you.
Who are the people that are parking there?
It's the residents.
Residents?
Yeah.
We gotta park somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, there was a house put
Friends
up
over.
with not enough parking space, which was a, I don't know why that was allowed, but, so they're always parking out front, all the time.
Thank you. All right, so there's two items here. One is the unloading and loading sign, and the other one is the Beachway thing. So the Beachway, thinking of changing the traffic flow would be something that you and the town manager need to come up with. Give us what the pros and cons and what we'd have to do for that by the next meeting. Now, the unloading sign and loading sign, that's completely different. Myself don't see a problem with erecting a sign that was already there at one time, was it not?
Yeah.
Chief, do you remember?
I don't recall the sign being there. I'm not opposed to having a sign, a regulatory sign placed in a specific area at your request. It's a cost issue with the town, for the town manager to do it and to get it made. I believe the estimate was between $500 and $700 to do something like that.
It's $250 to $300 for the sign. I don't know about the installation.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't pay for the sign, so if the direction of the commission is to post that area with a specific sign to try and deter that a little bit more rather than just having us enforce the ordinance as it exists, that's fine. I just would like to have that direction from the commission.
We can do that under existing budget line items for that type of activity.
Okay.
That's the direction of the commission.
And I had a question for the attorney. To put some teeth into the signage, can we just go right to $100 fine? I know you've just finished doing the town's ticketing policy, what the monies are for various violations, and I know it ranges from 30 to 500.
Well, I think if you're talking about what the chief had provided you, that is, that is kind of under the citation part of some of the citations that the chief would issue there. I guess, are you also talking about either citation or code enforcement? I guess or either
No,
one,
just
it doesn't
on
really
the
matter.
actual sign. There's a monetary number on the sign.
And that could be a citation, and
So I believe what Mr. Cos is asking is it proper and appropriate for us to give a specific additional fine of $100 for the first violation for a loading and unloading violation?
I think if we have an ordinance that provides for that, if we provide notice on the sign, I can take a look, a quick look to make sure that there's not any state statute that prohibits that, but I think that would be okay for us to do, but I can take a look at that, but we would have to, have we would have to have an ordinance that that allows us to do that, or an ordinance that says, okay, as at least you all adopt a resolution to say, this is the amount of the fine that we want, and then, I'll take a look to see. I'm not so sure if we would have to have it on the sign or not, but it's always helpful if you do, because especially something like that would get people's attention.
Right. It falls under the umbrella of right now, if somebody stops and blocks traffic, there's a $30 fine, and I think it ranges to 75 or 100 or something.
It's up to 250 for
250,
handicap, disabled parking without a permit.
So my question, I don't know if you need an ordinance, because it's already under the ordinance of not stopping in the middle of the road.
I believe that you have that as agenda item number 16 to discuss.
Okay, so do you want to, does anybody want to make a motion? Bob,
Can I make a comment?
come on up.
Bob Weiss, Blue, 23 Sailfish. This is the first time I heard that it is legal for handicap. And if you're going to put a sign saying no loading or unloading and fines and everything else, I think there should be some wording that says handicapped accessible or something to that effect.
Okay. We're beating this to death. Come on up. Yeah.
You changed the agenda to signs. So you have a sign at Beachway that says all this stuff and has the fines. Does that imply that someone can go to Porter Street or any other public access and load and unload? Or are we going to put signs on all of them up and down the street? Betty Bingham's here. She was the sign advocate to reduce visual pollution and get rid of signs. She's shaking her head. And now we're going to go back to putting up more signs with these fines on it. But you have a situation at Beachway, which I appreciate. I don't think this is the solution. But you're going to not have a sign at Porter Street, or even at Anna or Corinne, or anywhere else where there's a public going to put the same sign?
Case by case basis, Terry, you know as well as I. You could do that a case by case basis. We're replacing all the signs in this budget coming up anyway. But the thing is, this particular, as you just said, this is a particular problem spot. So you try one sign, and you don't have to put
You're missing what I'm saying. The
No.
people are going to say, well, I can go down to Porter Street.
I know what you're saying. So then what
And they can
happens?
load and unload.
So when the issue comes up,
We
and we
put
can
another
put
sign
another
down
sign
there?
there if you want to. But I wouldn't want to blanket the whole darn street with signs. We have one problem, one spot. Why would you want to do them all? Just because you think something may happen?
Well, I will plead guilty in front of the police chief that I was loading and unloading my family.
You're always unloading and
At
unloading.
Porter Street, and the police officers came by, two of them, a nice young woman and a fellow, and they were very, very polite, and they said, "You're not parking here, are you, sir?" And I had an Ocean Ridge little decal, and they knew who I was, and I said, "No, I'm not. I'm picking up my family." And they said, "Okay, just be sure you don't park too long." So that's the kind of thing that happens in the town of Ocean Ridge. Friendly, comfortable, and I stayed there. My family walked from the beach, and we took off. So that's going to keep happening.
Thanks for letting us know that. Okay, it says,
Betty is.
Betty, come on up, Betty.
Going back 150 years, when my children were young, you could not stop on Old Ocean. The police would come in and say, you may not stop, not even let them get off with their scuba diving equipment. So there must have been some ordinance back in the early 50s.
Thank you, Betty. Okay, so is there a motion about the sign?
Do we need a motion, or do we just direct staff to get something together for the next
Because he
meeting?
says he has in the budget.
If you want to direct staff, are you everybody in consensus about this one particular sign in one particular place? Everybody else on the same page with that? Don? Yeah. Okay, so we're directing chief of police and the town manager to erect a sign that says what?
No unloading, loading.
That's it.
And then,
And something handicap accessible?
isn't that obvious? If you're
I don't know the ramifications of excluding handicap
Chief?
accessible from the sign.
Our ordinance clearly allows stopping and offloading a person with a disability
Okay,
for access
there
to
it
the
is.
beach
So the
on
police
Old
aren't gonna,
Okay. So you got consensus. We're done with
Okay,
that.
done with that.
All right, thank you.
Life is good.
All right, let's move on to the town manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. My report's in your book under Agenda Item 9 tab. Just one brief comment on this, on the last item we just touched on. We're in the process of also putting a calming infrastructure down at the southwest corner of Old Ocean and Beachway. It involves some dock pilings and nautical rope, and that's being marked out and installed. The weather's delayed it a little bit, but that will also assist in the issue you were talking about. My manager report is in your backup. 3 items I listed on there. One is the town comprehensive plan update. We got a letter from the DEO that we need to do an evaluation appraisal notification letter to them, and that is due so that we can be compliant with the state before they would allow us to amend our comp plan for any reason in the future. We're talking to the company that did this work before, I believe it was in 2009 or 10, as well as we got a proposal from a different planner, and we've been talking to our legal firm, and we're going to get that letter into them and then explore whether there are any other issues that need to be looked at in the comp plan in terms of updating it. And I think some of that might actually emerge from your joint planning and zoning and town commission workshop if there's any kind of issues that are of concern for future potential comp plan amendments or updates. I did just get back last Thursday and Friday from the FCCMA annual conference. Got a lot of, talked to a lot of our vendors, talked to a lot of peers, and went over issues, and I've got appointments and contacts set up to follow up on some various proposals that came out of that. I don't have it written on here, but I do want to remind everybody we are now officially in hurricane season. That's important to remember in terms of debris and the rainy season and being prepared for storms. They're predicting a more active season than typically, so just want to make sure that's on everybody's radar screen. And finally, I put a note in here. I'd been asked by Vice Mayor Bonfiglio to include some backup information on a data recovery service that we did recently to get our town accounting package back in good shape for the audit that's being finalized this month. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, let me, Jamie, I read through your paragraph on the data recovery audit services, and the only sentences that seemed to address my concern were the first sentence and the last sentence, and I found both of them to be inaccurate. And I'm disappointed in the summary because it doesn't explain to us why, if you'll flip through that information, we had to spend $67.62 to pay Richard Hartley, a CPA, to recovery financial information and pre-audit testing of the ledger account balances. You can read what's in here to see the lead up to that information and listen to the audio from the last meeting as to what transpired. Since that meeting, I've talked to Mr. Bennett, the auditor with the Newland firm, twice. I've talked to Mr. Hartley a couple of times, total of about a couple hours at least, 2 or 3 hours on the phone, trying to figure out exactly what it is that happened. Let me first direct your attention to the first sentence. It says, requested information is attached regarding services of Tyler Tech software support, along with engaging independent contractor Rick Hartley to retrieve and test forensic data lost in apparent software power overriding glitch pending the GL this year. I've actually got the letter, the email that you sent, and I can distribute it to the commissioners. Oops, excuse me. Where you first engage Rick Hartley. And you mentioned nothing in that engagement letter about retrieving and testing forensic data. Has everybody got a copy? Starts at the bottom from Jamie Titcomb, Wednesday, March 2, 2016. I got your name from Ron Bennett and would like to set up a meeting to discuss possible periodic accounting auditing services for the town to help us get everything perfect. Now, you don't mention anything in there that we had a data loss, a software power overriding glitch in that, and I understood that the engagement after talking to Mr. Hartley and Mr. Bennett was exactly what you said in the email, was just periodic audit, accounting and auditing, which was an item that was put into the tentative budget and we specifically eliminated from the budget. What in fact happened is up to question. I talked to Mr. Bennett, who said he was told that there was a lightning strike in March that caused a loss of data in the accounting program in March. Mr. Hartley was under the impression that it was a pending issue. If you look to, so I'd asked for tech support information. If you look to the second page in your item, I got the records from the tech support company, and there is no record of a problem in March with respect to either lightning or a pending. The only reference from tech support is an entry, it's hard to read, 10/20/2016, it says GL missing appends. So that tech support call did not occur until October 2016, and the priority is non-critical. In other words, it wasn't a significant event for them, and I don't read that as being a loss of data. There's nothing in March indicating that there was any kind of loss of data or electrical breakdown in the system in March. What actually happened, according to, I believe, Mr. Hartley, and I've got my notes from my conversations, and I didn't make copies of them, but I spoke approximately hour and a half with him total, and Mr. Newland. He tells me that one of three things happened in March. We either had an electrical issue with respect to lightning and lost data, primarily inputting income into the accounting system, into the general ledger. It was either that or some sort of computer error resulted in loss of the data. So the entire month of March, we were short of income in the accounting system. We actually got the income, but it did not show up in the ledger. If you'll see, I have the revenue report for March, and I've highlighted, we get those monthly revenue reports,
Yep.
and I can circulate those. I went back, I actually keep these things, if you believe that. We have enough? Down there, okay, here, and here. If you'll see the revenue report for March, we have a lot of zeros in the current month, which is the 1, 2, 3. I don't know if you folks can't see that. Maybe, here, you can put this up on the screen, and that down there. For example, there's a lot of zeros for the current month. Ad valorem taxes, 0. Local options, 6 cents, 0, 0. Lots of zeros on the income side. It didn't get recorded for some reason. And again, it could have been somebody forgot to record it. There was a loss of data, either as a result of lightning strike or a computer glitch. But it wasn't there. And so the second part of the problem was that nobody was balancing the books, no one was reconciling the monthly statement to the general ledger. So that means at the end of each month, there was no reconciliation. It was off. We didn't actually have the income that that we actually got. We didn't record the income that we actually got. It's kind of the opposite of that old punchline. What do you mean I don't have any? What do you mean I'm overdrawn? I still have checks. This is kind of the opposite. What do you mean I have money in the account? I still have checks I can write, or I don't have checks anymore. Anyways, that's what was going on. Now, the second part of your paragraph, I think, is misleading. It says, transition in town staff, legacy software systems, and changing assignment of duties have all contributed to a problematic accounting system that will need to be majorly modernized. The problem was that staff, and I'm looking to Jamie or Tracy, primarily Jamie, because that's why we hired you, did not reconcile the statements to the general ledger. You can't blame Lisa and Jean or any of the other people because they don't even have access to the general ledger. It's password control. The reason for that is because we can't have everybody in the town accessing the general ledger. We have to have a very limited number of people. So somebody with authority was not reconciling the statement. This error carried through the entire year. And, you know, somebody should have seen this in April. And the reason I say that is because you've got the March, you see all the zeros. I've highlighted, you know, some of the things that are continuing revenue coming into the town that are zeros. If you look to, let's see, I brought March, what else did I bring? I brought April. For example, the ad valorem taxes. That's the money that we get for the property taxes. It streams primarily from, I mean, the clerk, you know, the property taxes collector gets it in November. They send us a check in December, and it continues to usually April or May, and then we get the checks May and June of the following year. And I've got, you can see, here's the April revenue report. And these are actually my notes from the meeting when I asked questions about that. That's what you see across the top. You can see if you compare, you know, the current month for March where we didn't record that income, we have zero for ad valorem taxes. In April revenue report, we have $255,000. There are a number of other areas in April and March that are zero where we actually have income. It's streams of income that should be coming in. Somebody in the office with the task of reconciling these statements, even if they didn't look at the general ledger, didn't look at the monthly statements, should have seen this March revenue report seeing zero coming in for a number of these items and didn't. And the reason we wound up spending $7,000 to Mr. Hartley is because this error was carried throughout, and I'm simplifying it, you know, a long conversation and trying to do it as quickly as I can. This meeting is going to go longer than ever. But the reason it wasn't caught and corrected and saved us several thousands of dollars is because the error carried through to February, when the monthly statements and all the information was sent to our auditor, because our year closes out in October. February 9th is the email, according to Mr. Bennett with the Newland firm, is the date that he got the email with all the information, and we said within a couple of days he sat down with staff and said, you got a problem because your books don't reconcile, and we got to figure out where it is. And that's when, you know, I say, Rick Hartley, independent contractor, that's when you brought him in. It didn't have anything to do with March of 2016. It occurred in March of 2017. And it really doesn't have anything to do with software systems and changing assignments, and because this should have come to somebody's attention in March. Now, yeah, we get those as commissioners. I'll tell you what I look at. I look at, because otherwise I'd be spending, extra 15, 20 hours a week trying to figure all this stuff out every time we get a revenue report. I look at the second page and I say, oh, the revenues, we're at 73.5% for March. That's great. March is, I think, the 6th or 7th month into our fiscal year from October. Should be around 50, 60%. We're at 75. That's good. And then you look to expenditures, and that's what I look at. Expenditures were at 47%, which is at page 5 of the March expenditure report. That's good. So we have more money coming in than we anticipated and less money going out, because again, we should be about 50, 60% of expenditures. So we have less expenditures. That's good. That's what I look at. It's the manager's, I believe, job, because that's one of the reasons we hired him, to get this information together. And their hair should have been on fire as of March, because you can go through and see all these continuing revenues were at zero. State revenue sharing, we should be getting money in every month. Local government 1.5 cent sales tax, we should be getting money in. Law enforcement, fire services, we should be getting money in, and it was all zeroed. And so your hair should have been on fire. This revenue report was dated April 25th, 2016, 8:53 a.m. Sometime the next couple of days, somebody should have said, what's going on here? Why are we not showing this revenue when we know we should be having revenue come in for all these categories? And not only was it April, but it followed through in each month. In other words, the books just didn't balance because there was no reconciliation between the general ledger account and the bank statements. And it didn't come to the attention of the people in control, the manager or the clerk, and I think it's the manager's ultimate responsibility, until February when they had the meeting with Mr. Nolan. So I'm disappointed with this explanation. And I spent a lot of time going through this, trying to figure this out, because I'm not a CPA, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a bookkeeper, and this tells me that explanation, Jamie, in your report doesn't tell the complete story as to why we are where we're at, which is spending $7,000 to have someone come in and correct the books. Now, he's correct. Once Newland, Mr. Bennett from Newland figured this out, we had to bring in an independent auditor, because our auditor can't find the error and then try to fix it. By law, we have to bring in somebody independent. But this should have been a minimal amount. It should have been caught in April or May at the latest, and the reconciliation should have been done. None of these things were done. It couldn't have been done through the end of the fiscal year, because somebody would have known at the end of the year that we weren't showing this revenue coming in. I'm disappointed. And like I said, I've got all my conversations here. I've got them all tabbed. If you want any more information, I'd be glad to answer questions, but I'm disappointed in that. And it's not the front office fault, it's somebody else's fault.
Jamie? Sure. Let me address a couple of your issues. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for all your thorough investigation and follow-up on this. Let me just address a couple of points that you made for clarification. First of all, the interest and the focus and finding out what happened has been continuous all along the timeline that you have indicated. The first email that you referenced, which was an introductory email to Mr. Hartley back in March 2nd of 2016,
was prior to discovery of the incident that's illuminated here. That was a completely different inquiry by introduction to him, and you're correct, we originally, when we met him, we asked him for a proposal last year about ongoing services, which the commission then asked us to not include in the budget there. The issues of the data loss and/or elimination of data or some kind of a pending overwriting or whatever occurred, that was actually not brought to the attention till that late October date, which you saw in the ticket to Tyler Tech to figure out why at year end. Just as an aside, we have 60 days at the end of a fiscal year to go back and adjust the accounting and do the accruals necessary to bring a fiscal year into auditable readiness, if you will, to then move forward and go through that process. At that time, in October, when that was discovered, there was also a hurricane going on, there was some other incidents, and we were also reselecting an audit firm, which happens to be the audit firm that the town has worked for over 10 years. They were reselected after an RFP and competitive process to select somebody, which put that date out further in terms of getting to the point where they were giving us this feedback. Couple of things that I want to mention to you. One, the deputy town clerk does have full access to all the components and modules of the Tyler Tech system, as well does the town clerk, and I have administrative password on that, and I look at that stuff all the time. The reconciliation issue that you mentioned is a procedural issue that has been done by another front office employee for as long as I know, because I inherited much of the procedural stuff here. And we found out in this past year that much of that reconciliation is done to Excel spreadsheets and specific matching, but was not done to bank statements. And so there was a disconnect in bringing this all back together. In the same monthly reports that you mentioned, we've had conversations administratively from my department, from the clerk's department, from the police department, and others, that numbers in the data that we were reviewing were not adding up, or there were numbers where individual line items in a budget didn't seem to make sense because they were larger or smaller than what should be budgeted. And it really became an issue of GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. When we're looking at data and it's not being posted to the right place, we start to forensically look at that and see how can we fix that. Why is there a negative number here? Why is this particular line item over budget or under budget, et cetera? And because the monthly reports are appended each month on a monthly basis, and then it's all written at one time when that appending's done, that's why you would see jumps in numbers on the month-to-date or year-to-date or the various figures you mentioned. So, to me, it is my responsibility. You hired me to fix and evolve and modernize systems and legacy systems in this town. I have taken an approach of trying to forensically understand why certain things aren't working properly and gone about trying to break them to fix them. But in terms of the timeline, just because we can look backwards and identify when certain things happen, it's easy for us to do that in hindsight. Moving forward, when these things were coming out on a monthly basis and not creating large concern because they seem to be linear in nature, one line item, one department, this, that, and then we see a correction the following month. So there's been a concerted effort by multiple people in the town, the people working with the people that are putting the data into this, talking to the auditors, working with the town clerk's office, and working with the individual department heads as to how their particular budgetary items look. We've been trying to work through the issues and recalibrate the system and the staff to get the data right. When when we realized there was missing data, which really emerged in October and November, and we were trying to get all of this ready for audit, and we selected the auditor, when we realized in conversations with the auditor and then his referral back to Mr. Hartley that there were trial balance issues, in other words, numbers, data sets matching each other, which if you don't have that coming out of the box, then you know you're not going to have a successful audit because there are certain premises that have to occur in order for things to fall into place and give you a proper audit. That's when we doubled down, and I asked Mr. Hartley, I had a letter in there where we asked him to specifically work on the issue of helping us identify what happened, figure out if the data that Tyler Tech gave us back was in fact all the data we needed and it was properly situated in the accounting program so that we could move forward on closing out the year and getting the audit commenced and forward. Because there, as you indicated, there were difficulties in that data matching that pushed the timeline back further, and then the auditors had already committed to multiple other audits and CAFRs that put their priority on our services at the end of the line, if you will. At this point in time, I believe we've expended virtually as much time as Mr. Hartley was going to expend in order to verify the data and correct it. And we believe Mr. Bennett is ready to start the final throes of the audit and give a report next month for all of these issues and why they happened, and confirm to us, in fact, that the content, the dollars in the data is correct for the fiscal year of the subject matter. Beyond that, every month, as you indicated, I've seen these anomalies. Department heads have seen these anomalies. They've been brought to my attention. I've brought them to people's attention, and we've been working on them to try to get them both procedurally correctly in order, as well as making sure the math works so that the town could enjoy an audit that is minor in comment or other issues. And that's...
Okay, Jamie, you're missing the point. The point is that, assuming everything you say is correct, the general ledger was not balanced to the bank statements every month after March. That's the problem. Number two.
Prior to March either.
Number two, this bookkeeping system you're talking about in the Excel spreadsheet, we do keep two sets of books. And which is, everybody thinks two sets of books. It's good to keep a check with the two sets of books that Gene and Lisa keep. But that's not reconciling with the general ledger. They have access to some of the Tyler software. They do not have access to the general ledger. And so they cannot reconcile the bank statement to the general ledger. That's the problem. Number two, again, assuming you'd found this out in October, when were you planning on telling us that our books didn't balance? That there was a problem with the revenue and the monthly statements in the ledger? And number three, I've shown you what these. I've got copies of the August 2016 revenue expenditure report. Again, every item that's got zeros in it in the March report has got numbers in it that I've highlighted. Somebody should have seen this error in comparing when the when the March revenue and expenditure statement was printed out, and should have, their hair should have been on fire. Why is there a zero in the column for ad valorem taxes? We're still supposed to be getting ad valorem taxes. Why is there zero in the in the state revenue sharing proceeds? That should be a number. We're constantly getting that money. Why is there a zero in local? Somebody should have looked at that and said, what's the problem? As of April 25, 2016, there's 5 more days in April. I don't know if that's a weekend or not, but it's certainly by the first week of May. Somebody should have been asking questions. And when did you plan on telling us that this problem existed? And, you know, despite, you may have been talking with staff, but you weren't talking to me. I don't know if you talked to any of the other commissioners. You didn't talk to me. This was all a surprise to me as the last meeting, and I had to spend several hours to dig this information out. And I'm frankly, I'm disappointed. That, you know, you haven't told us exactly what it is that happened, why it happened. It happened because somebody wasn't balancing the bank statements each month to the general ledger, not the log system that Gene and Lisa were dealing with. That's the second set of books that we keep, and it's a check. And that's what he's referring to, is that they have access to this information. You're not talking about that. I'm talking about balancing the monthly statement, the income and expenditures to the general ledger. They don't have access. It's password control. And that's the problem that I have. And you're just missing the point that, assuming everything you said is true, you should have picked this up April or May, looking at this revenue report and expenditure report. I've said my say.
Anything else to add, Jimmy?
It's an ongoing issue. We are still looking at it. We're still working to correct it. I acknowledge the various points that the commissioner's making. There's a lot of work still going into this to bring it all together.
Okay. Any other questions for Jamie?
I just have a pretty straightforward question. The first, Commissioner Bonfiglio, or Vice Mayor Bonfiglio, that was terrific detail you went into. I couldn't keep up. The way back in 2016, you wanted to hire somebody to do budget work to help you. So that got nixed by the commission. And now we got a bill to do pre-audit budget work with you. We also heard last meeting that Tyler Tech, the software company, was horrible. All the software that they had was horrible. Yet in the new computer proposal, you're once again renewing Tyler Tech for 2018, or bringing in Tyler Tech with different software, even though they provided maintenance and patches previously. And number three, I noticed that we're going to get into this later in the meeting. Tracy's job description now includes some of the functions that you were hired for. So I have a different outlook than Jim. I'm looking at the monies were spent to do your job, and now as we approach next year, those parts of your job that you were hired to do are being moved over to Tracy.
Let me clarify, with all due respect, two things. The job description of the town clerk is the town treasurer, with certain functions are codified in your charter and your code. When you hired me, I told you in my interview, I'm not doing accounting and bookkeeping.
I wasn't part of that interview.
Well, when I was hired, the question was specifically asked to me, would I be the finance director and budget director as part of my duties as the town manager? This isn't about budgeting. The budget is entirely produced by me with the data that's given to me by the employees in the departments. The finance director piece is about where you steer money, how you manage and deal with money, and go through all the procedural elements to make sure that the town's financial program is working properly. The bookkeeping and accounting piece of all this, which is residing in the front office of this building and in the town, is a data entry and a check and a cross-check process. And if that data is not correct, then all those other elements are put into jeopardy. And it's my job to find out why that's happening, what needs to be fixed to make it happen, and make sure everything gets correctly done. I have voiced to this commission in the past that procedurally and data-based wise, there have been things we've found since I've been here that need to be modernized and evolved and done differently. And I've been working persistently to bring the town to that place. What this is an exposure of a little bit of an underbelly of something that has not been working very well, and it was handled in different ways in the past. I've been doing this for a very long time. This is not new to me. I found something that is not working correctly. I want to clarify, you made the comment that we stated that Tyler Technology was bad. We never said that. We said we had an outdated legacy system that had not been updated and re-upped. And Tyler Technology, if we're talking about considering using them again, it's to look at their new generation accounting package that does light years more things than the old legacy system does. The benefit for considering them again would be to utilize the fact that we already have a contractual relationship with them, and there would be some efficiencies and value afforded by migrating from their old system to their new system, some compatibilities. We are also talking to other companies that offer competitive products that would offer the same thing. But I have to weigh that all out and look at all those options. So I want to clarify here that if the data that I get and work with is not even reliable, it doesn't mean I'm not seeing it. It doesn't mean that you're not seeing it. It means we're looking at it and saying, there's something wrong with this picture. Why is it coming out this way? We've got to go back and find why these numbers don't add up, why numbers shift or switch from one appended month to another, and get to the root of the problem, and that's what I'm trying to do in my overarching role. I'm not trying to negate any responsibility, but there are 30 employees here and they all have jobs to do. I can't do every one of their jobs, but it's my job to find out if something is not working correctly, to find out how it can work correctly and make sure that gets implemented and done. And that's where we are on this project in a big picture sense. I'm not trying to dispel any of the details or anomalies or problems that are occurring as a result of this, but it is my aim to improve the system and make sure the town gets a clean audit, albeit late in the system in terms of we're at the end of the audit deadline window, and hopefully that, according to Mr. Bennett at Nolan Holden Minor, will fall into place very quickly now that they've gotten all of this other front-end data issue out of the way. And hopefully we will give you a relatively positive audit report at the end of the road here from this particular fiscal year assessment. I can't promise that because they've made comment to me like, if you had an electrical zap, why isn't everything UPS'd? Battery, universal power supply backup. Well, in fact, it is, and we've already determined that. So we don't think that a power outage was the issue unless it happened at the exact moment that an appending process was going on, because it's a remote process to a server, and if there's any interruption in it at all from a technical standpoint, it interrupts the data that is being overwritten to the system. And it only takes a snap of an instant. I think you all have computers. You've had a power outage where you've lost all the work that's not saved at that point. That's kind of the phenomenon that we were dealing with here. That's one piece of it. The other piece is the data entry. And if that's not correct, if it's not being coded correct, if it's not being put in the system correctly, it takes a lot of time and forensic energy to track that down. As Mr. Bonfiglio had indicated, it takes a lot of time to just find all this stuff and circle back. We look at it each and every day, and we work with members of the staff each and every day to try to A, figure out where these things are happening, and B, how to fix them and correct them. And as we move into the new budget year, after the discussions of the last budget where there was tremendous concern about the accounting software package that we're utilizing and why weren't we recommending replacing it, as you've seen in some of the backup for tonight's meeting, we have put an indicator in there that if we want to bring everybody forward at the same time, we might be well served by investing in a new package, whether it's Tyler Tech or somebody else's, so everybody gets in the same learning curve and the system gets corrected all in one fell swoop. But there will be a learning curve regardless of how that goes.
Okay, so to wrap up, you're saying it's not
an employee problem, putting in the wrong information. It's a problem with the software.
It's a combination.
Okay, so it is a combination of both an employee not putting in the right information and then the software not working correctly.
Some of the feedback I get in terms of that of why is this happening or how do you fix this from people that do the data entry is, I don't know, I don't do that, somebody else did that piece of it.
Okay, well, that starts getting old after already a year, so we need to move on from that.
Sure,
That
certainly.
discussion, believe me, I've heard that more than enough times. But somebody should have seen, in fact, like you said, the finance manager and the budgetary manager, but you would have looked at the expenditure report just to make sure, since you're the financial manager, and seen those zeros, as Jim had pointed out. So I would presume that would be something you would check up on. Either way, it's something that obviously needs to be addressed, taken care of, and,
A lot of continued attention to get it right, certainly.
okay, well, during budget time, it always seems to rear its ugly head, but
I just
Anyway,
want to
so-
say a couple more things. Yeah, Jamie, you may have 30 employees here in the town. There's only 2 who have passcode protected access to the general ledger. There's only 2 who can reconcile the bank statements to the general ledger every month. And you're one of them. And you're the finance director, number 1. And number 2, you look at these revenue and expenditure reports, you have to. And you have to wonder why we got 0 ad valorem taxes when the next month in May, and I've got the May here too, if you want to see it, we got $75,000 in. Nothing in the earlier months, but we got 75,000. I mean, it just, someone's should have been looking at this back then. And it's not Lisa, and it's not Jean, it's not the front office people, it's not Hal, it's not, any lieutenants, the other people that are employees. It's you.
okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Anything else? Anything else in your report?
No, that's it, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on, Brian?
Yes, I'll make this quick. You have, at the last commission meeting, you all had asked me to look at basically some beach area issues as far as state laws, local ordinances regarding certain jurisdictional concerns there. In my report, basically what I did, I know that Ken Spilius, your prior city attorney or town attorney, had drafted an in-depth report in 2014. Basically, I just updated the information that he had done because in 2014, you'll also have an attachment there at your places too. After he initiated the report, after you all looked at that, there were certain ordinances adopted by the commission at that time. And at this point in time, based on the research that I have looked at, I don't have any recommendations as far as other ordinances that we need to adopt. I mean, it's pretty clear that the jurisdiction between private and public is if there's been beach renourishment, it's the erosion control line, which you actually have had some beach renourishment here in Ocean Ridge. And the erosion control line goes from the north end of town down to, I would say, close to maybe halfway between the Ocean Avenue and Woolbright bridges there, as far as it relates to the beach. The other part, you look at the mean high water line, which is wet sand, dry sand. It can be very difficult. I know the chief has a drawing showing the erosion control line. I've seen that, and it is kind of all over the place. And so basically, if someone calls up or if there are certain, issues, if somebody claims that someone is on their portion of the beach or something, the chief is going to be bound by looking at Florida Statute 81009, which is the trespass statute, which basically means, okay, you have to provide notice, you have to have signage. There are certain other things that you have to do in case, if the property owner wants that enforced. Other than that, and a lot of times that is an issue, it's not so much an ordinance issue, it's an issue whether or not it's between the property owner and, calling for law enforcement to come there to enforce the trespass statute, to take a look at that. at this point in time, if you all have some questions for me, please ask them. I'll make, once again, I wanted to make this brief, so. If not, there's a couple other things I need to add regarding some of the title work that is not in here, and I can go to that as well, but.
All right.
Okay, all right then. Basically, I did not have time to draft a report because it's not completely, I have not gotten all the information back because I need a little bit further direction from you all as far as a couple other things that we're going to do. You had asked for, at least, for me to go ahead and do title work on 4 areas, and I understand in speaking with some of you, there was a discussion on, well, maybe let's do the beach area, the beach crossovers as well. I apologize for that. I did not have that done, but we're working through that now. So, but as far as Hershey Drive Walk, that area, no, there is no town jurisdiction. There is no town maintenance responsibilities. We do not have any control over that area. As far as the Fayette Drive Walk area, once again, there is no town jurisdiction there. There is no town maintenance responsibilities. We don't have any right to go on that property to do any maintenance or perform any functions. The 10-foot easement along the easterly boundary of Sailfish Lane, it appears that that was dedicated to us. However, what I'm going to need to do is to have our town engineer just map out that legal description that is on that easement, and then I will give that to the title attorney so he can confirm that, yes, this is the area that we had the search done, and this is the area that that shows that we do have an easement over that. And so that's just kind of a question that's still hanging out there. We think that we do actually have an easement over that area. Now, as far as the Porter Street area goes, that one, yes, that one is town right-of-way. We have jurisdiction and we have maintenance responsibilities in that area. So that's where we are on that. Now, on the beach crossovers, I was able this afternoon, I got with the chief and looked at some plats, so I think I've got enough. I'm hoping that I have enough legal descriptions there in order to give the title attorney to go ahead and research that, if that is the direction of this commission, to go forward with that. To take a look to, confirm that, I guess that we have the jurisdiction and the maintenance responsibilities on those, and I think it's 8 areas, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I think it would be, if we already did the 4 walkways from Old Ocean West, why not definitively do all the beach crossovers, so we could do, this is done and over with, and we have it, maybe we can actually make it into some kind of a map.
And I'll
So we
give
don't
you a
have to ask
report.
this anymore. I know that Ken's here, and we probably thought about this
Right.
a dozen times. So definitively end it all, who owns what are we responsible for, and be done with it completely. So that way, when it comes up again, which it will, a few years from now, that we know exactly what's what.
Okay, I can proceed forward right away with
Now,
that.
another little caveat, since the town does own Porter Street, that way I can pull a permit now and do the LSV part. Are you guys all on board with that? It won't cost the town anything? Get it on board with that?
Mr. Brown, have a comment on that?
Will you let me use?
Yeah. So I'm gonna, since now it's a town. Oh, okay. Sorry, you have direction then on,
Yes, sir, I do.
okay.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes, that's it.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you. Chief?
The report is included in your package from April. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. In addition to that, I would like to remind everybody that I am getting ready to put out the annual Trees and Wire hurricane season reminder in the newsletter, by mail, by social media, everything we can to get everybody in the mindset that we need to start looking at the trees and the maintenance issues that are associated with going through a successful non-event hurricane season. We have had 2 incidents which are very concerning to me over the last 5 days, and those are burglaries to residences. And I would ask Tracy to put up a picture We've identified these two young men as persons of interest. They're not, that picture is not from the town of Ocean Ridge, it is from another jurisdiction. We believe that those two individuals may be responsible for 2 daytime burglaries where they are jimmying the front door and going into people's residences. I will tell you, it is very concerning that they are out and about. If anybody knows them or sees them in town, please call us. We would like to introduce ourselves and get their names. In addition to that, if you have an alarm, please use it. Neither residence that was entered had their alarm activated. It was after the fact reports by either the homeowner coming home or a neighbor seeing a door open that is not readily visible from the road, to be honest with you. So they're seeking to go into places where you don't see them. That particular photograph is showing them checking a residence door in another location. They were engaged by law enforcement in another jurisdiction. However, they didn't identify them. So we're actively engaged in looking for them. We believe they're responsible for 2 crimes, which is too many to us, obviously, in the center part of town. So I just would like to ask everybody, especially summertime, people are trying doors, people are knocking to see if people are home. If you see something at your neighbor's house, and I know Mr. DeVos has a house that's set back from the street, that I can't see his front door. I know that Mrs. Bingham probably hears and sees things. I would ask that, just like those two, that the neighbors look out for neighbors and call us on anything you think is suspicious. We would rather respond to something that is a non-event than respond to, and have to take a report of somebody breaking into a house.
These are all front doors?
Both of the ones we had were front doors. Some other agencies have had issues with back and side doors.
You know, anytime somebody goes out of there.
That's an alarm system. You just need to report it to us. We're good with that. I withdrew the item 12 from Ms. Sabia. I will explain to you why. She has failed to recontact us. She was up to the point in the process where she was going to get her physical. We have had no contact with her for over a week, and so we cannot proceed with that. We will be looking to restart our hiring process and interviews for the dispatch position once again.
Chief, I have a question for you since you decided to talk about a couple recent incidents. We got this letter, email from Mr. Dubose. I got a copy of it, I don't know if anybody else did, concerning an incident. I actually have a copy of the police report, and it's kind of disconcerting to see how the officers treated the suspect. Can you, Mr. Dubose wanted something to take place, I think. I think you sent an email back, so do you have anything to say to Mr. Dubose? I think I'd like to get a report back on your findings by next meeting, if that's possible.
I don't believe that will be possible. It will be a complete investigation. It is being assigned by me. That investigation will take more than a week, I can assure you,
Okay.
to conduct interviews and speak to witnesses. And we are discovering that there are other people who may have been present who saw something. Based upon the information that I had initially, I directed the lieutenant to look into the circumstances. And since that time, I've gotten some other information which has led me to ask him to look deeper. It would be improper for me to be able to tell you that I can report on that within the next week.
Can you just give us then a status report at the next meeting?
If I have
in your report?
If I have something that I can report to you, I will.
Well, just even something that says I have nothing to report at this time, so.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
That I can do.
thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Well, I have one thing I want to say. I want you, about the Ocean Ridge Police Department. I had an incident in my house with my son. The sergeant and the officer who came there were excellent. They did their job very well. They were concerned, there's a fact that's concerned, more it seemed than I was, because I didn't think he was hurt that bad, but they were concerned. They had all their accoutrements when they came. I was a little disappointed in the response time of Boynton Beach, but other than that, our officers showed true professionalism. When they came to my house, they directed the people on the street, and they did a very fine job. I just want to say thank you so much from my wife and myself.
I'll pass it on to the 2 officers. I know who it was.
Thank you. All right.
Can you share that response time?
Well, for my wife, if it was more than 1 minute, it was too long.
I know. Was it over 8 minutes?
No, it wasn't that. Honestly, I'm not positive, but I know it was over 6, so. All right, so let's see, moving on to action items number 12, which now is number 18, which is the last item, the ordinance number 619, which we plan to table until the next meeting, because of the workshop that's being held the 19th of June. So if there's any public comment on it now, you can have public comment on it, or we can wait until the workshop or meeting in July. So if we want to make, anybody want to make a motion to, and that, it's, I'm aiming it right at Ken Khalil, which he knows. Because we're about to just get a motion to move it till.
I won't be here in July to,
So we got your letter, which is very detailed.
Put this on the agenda anytime
Please-
Mr.
please
Khalil
make
is not
my,
here.
my letter part of the record, since I may not be here for the 19th or the July meeting. I feel very strongly about this, as you can tell by my letter.
Yes.
And,
Strongly
which was
worded letter
very
to follow.
detailed, I thought. And if you have any questions on that, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
No, we very much appreciate your letter, by the way.
My pleasure.
Thank you. All right, I move to postpone the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 619 to the July regular commission meeting, which I believe has been moved, has it not?
It's
It is.
July 10th at 6 PM.
July 10th, 6 PM.
10th, was it?
Second.
Motion and second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Brian, do we have to do a motion to authorize the joint meeting to look at this?
For what?
To this revisit this amendment? Or this,
No, you have no word.
No, I
ordinance
mean,
here.
staff already will have, we
Okay.
will plan on having a draft, like an agenda, kind of an agenda there for them. And we will have this latest draft of this ordinance, I think, and I'm kind of looking over at Tracy too, to make sure, we will include Mr. Khalil's letter. And I guess if we have any other written documentation of comments one way or the other, I would suggest we include that as well, for that 19th meeting. So
Yeah,
that way.
the minutes from this meeting as well, because there were other people in the audience, so that everybody's voice is heard. Okay? All right, moving on to action item number 13, adopt a paving schedule and costs.
Thank you, Mayor. You have backup in your tab 13. Since the last time we addressed this issue, we actually signed the piggyback contract with M&M All County Paving. We presented them with all the core reports and engineering reports and data in order to prioritize and price out the streets for the milling and repaving program, Phase 1, in the current fiscal year. The quotes, behind the cover memo, you have the entire list of streets and the grading in the town, as well as a map, and then you have the individual segments priced out in the quotes from All County. And you also have some information in there for obtainable traffic calming options that can be done in line with the paving, should we choose to include them. There was comment made earlier about inline speed tables on Beachway, for example. Those can be constructed under this configuration. From the beginning, the town has already, in the current fiscal year, appropriated $200,000 for the milling and repaving. And all along, we also talked about potentially using the revenues for the penny sales tax that would be coming to the town in this year. So because that has been the premise going over the last several months, if you added up the costs on all the various street segments that we had earmarked to pave, it comes up to just under $280,000 if we were all in to accomplish that Phase 1 paving. To date, the sales tax, the penny sales tax anticipated revenues to the town have not been appropriated for that purpose, and if we were going to utilize them for this purpose, we would have to do a budget amendment to appropriate those revenues into the budget and then expend them out for this purpose or any other eligible purpose under the criteria of the penny sales tax referendum. Our recommendation for moving forward here is to have M&M Paving, All County Paving, go ahead and go forward with the $200,000 appropriated for the town milling and repaving system. However, we would have to, on the list of prescribed streets, we would have to remove 80,000, which is essentially if you pick any two significant streets on this, we would postpone those in order to stay within that 200,000 and move those streets onto the first priority on the next phase of the paving, which could occur under the new appropriation in FY '18 when that gets appropriated. Conversely, if you wanted to go ahead with all the streets that were proposed today, then we would make the recommendation that the motion would be to include appropriating the extra sales tax money for that purpose. Now, there was discussion in previous meetings about leaving, for example, East Anna Street off the equation because of potential projects and complications up there. There was talk back and forth about Beachway, whether or not we were going to include specific types of traffic calming. And as I reported to you, the paving company has confirmed that any infrastructural traffic calming will require engineering surveys and full specs and design plans. So if we're not going with the already pre-approved county traffic calming devices that they allow because they already fit their approved design, that might be a consideration as to how we move forward on that particular street. The list is before you. There's about 10 or 12 streets on there, and you can see the prices for each segment, and we just need direction as to moving forward and if you have any particular order in which ones you would like us to pause on or defer to the end of the list or to the first of the new phase.
The traffic calming on Beachway, can that be done after the asphalting, or it has to be done at the same time?
They're using asphalt.
Yeah,
Using asphalt?
that's an inline process.
And how much did that add to?
Depending on the type you pick, the shorter ones are 10,000 for two. The more spread out calming humps, for lack of a better word, are 12,000 for two. So they're very close.
I thought that we were doing mid-block at one point. I remember discussing.
These are mid-block
Right,
applications.
I thought it was 4,000 from the paver, and then an additional 4,000 from the applique company.
This does not contemplate adding. The paver's price on those installations includes striping and signage. The applique from the paveway system, which we talked about at previous meetings, is a separate treatment that would be applied after the fact. That's not included in these prices. That runs about $10 a square foot for application.
Yeah, but if you do, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, if you do some sort of traffic calming hump, don't you have to sign it or paint it or doing something to alert drivers that it's there?
So my understanding is
Caution, you may lose your
that
undercarriage.
there are two designs which you should consider. One is in the last page of this proposal. One is the ITE, which is the shorter version, which is more like a speed hump that you have said you didn't like because they're very short and narrow. So you go over the bumpo kind of thing. The other is the Seminole speed hump, which is elongated out. You can see from that it's 22 feet long. So you've got a 6-foot incline, a 10-foot table on top of it, and then a 6-foot drop. All of those have to be signed and striped, and that, my understanding from the paver and sitting in on that meeting, is included in his pricing for these particular designs.
So I'm a little confused.
It's shown on that drawing too as to what
Yes,
that.
sir.
Yeah, I got the drawing here. So someone went from, I was originally told it's $4,000 for the, let's call it the hardware, the actual tar. And then the applique was 4,000 on top of that, but you have to wait 2 weeks to put the applique on, because you gotta let the oil go out of the tar. So,
Okay.
now suddenly we're at
The,
12,000 just for the tar?
okay, the installation of a Seminole speed hump,
Yeah.
which, with all due respect, would be what I would recommend
Yes.
based upon having speed humps in my neighborhood, is $6,250 each for them to come in, do all of the surface preparation, install the speed hump, stripe it, and install signage required and haul away any debris. If you wanted to have the additional decorative, I would call it, or patterned surface on the top to give you the noise that looks like brick pavers that are not bricks, so they don't
Right.
deteriorate. That, I believe, came in under a different proposal from Paveway Systems.
Correct.
I don't recall what the specific price.
About $10 a square foot, I think it was $9.85.
So if you're looking at a 20-foot road by 10 feet of a Seminole hump, you're looking at 200 square feet per Seminole hump. Okay?
Times 10.
Times 10, okay?
So actually,
For each one.
you're down to 2,000, is my math right?
So I would say that you're at $2,000 per hump. So if I did the quick math,
Let me
I
just,
always use a calculator, so.
So it's
I would say
$8,000.
it's $8,250 per
Right.
Seminole speed
Right.
hump that meets the DOT standards and the Palm Beach County standards and could be done in conjunction with your Beachway project as part of the repave.
Thank you.
All right,
May I-
so, go ahead.
I'd like to make a comment that I would like to see us stick with the $200,000 money that's already set aside for street paving, and take the $22,000 that we have in from the penny sales tax and appropriate that to go towards doing the traffic commerce, and leave the other $59,000 that should come in this year on the $81,000, and leave that for other infrastructure projects such as drainage.
When is the paving supposed to begin? And what street was proposed to be first?
their announced start date was on or about June 12th, so it's about 10 days out.
And what
Weather
was it-
permitting and.
And what was the
other
first
items.
street to begin?
We haven't assigned them the first street.
All right, because see, I guess where I'm going with this is that earlier in the meeting, we're waiting for next month for a one-way or signage and whatever we're doing. If we put a double hump, Seminole hump, speed hump, it has directional on it, which we're paying for. So that's not going to work if we don't even know if we're doing one way or not. So what's the last street to be done if we did a street last, what prospective date would it be done?
The way I understand it, they're going to do these groupings of streets by mobilizing in a particular area and doing that section, and then move on to the next grouping of the area. I believe, Chief, you were in that meeting with me, I think they said the duration of the whole project was several weeks out of working through all these groupings of streets. It's dependent on weather, it's dependent on staging and all of those kinds of things. But once they start, they would work through the whole list of streets that we assign to them until they're done.
Okay, so right now we have Beachway as the fifth street on the list, right?
These
And,
traffic commerce cannot be installed after the asphalt.
No, because
It's
you're.
more
well,
cost effective.
They can, but it's more costly
So-
to do it after the
You
fact.
see where,
We're back
so you
there.
want to just put Beachway paving?
You put in
Can we do the ancillary streets on off of Beachway and not do the main road itself?
You're talking about which streets?
Oh, that would
The
be-
ancillary streets, you've got Dolphin Bend,
Ocean and
you've
Ocean.
got the Osprey.
That's it.
May I?
They weren't on the.
What do you mean you
cover
don't know? You
list,
live here.
but-
I don't, I have no idea if you can do it.
May I? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I mean, physically, are they able to, or?
Yeah, I mean, if they can do those streets
don't
and
know.
just
They're
not. do
private
Beachway.
streets, we can't
I
do
don't
them.
think
There's some
that
sort
would
of
work as
tie-in
far as-
between the order, I don't know.
It's just milling some road.
In looking at the evaluation ranking, all of those ancillary streets that we would do are C streets. So there's a C minus and a C, and I would say that it would probably be in our best interest to do Beachway Drive, Dolphin, Dolphin Bend, and Osprey Drive at the same time, because you will only impact that neighborhood for a short period of time once rather than 3 times. It may be in our best interest to give them a list and have them consider Beachway down the list a little further, so that we can be sure that we're going to do traffic calming or not do traffic calming. You've already suggested taking East Anna Street off of the list as a discussion, which I think you have to discuss now because of the proposed construction impact on that. So if there were a decision to go with the amount of streets that we have and hold Beachway, Dolphin, Dolphin Bend, and Osprey in abeyance until we can get a better idea for a month, I think you can buy that much time if they start on June 12th. I don't believe that they would make it down that list far enough to get to the July 10th meeting before you would be able to make the decision.
All right, so then when we do this, I mean, I agree with Don, I mean, I think the $200,000 is where we want to stay, because we really don't have the other 81 yet. And just compile a list of streets and leave the main main thoroughfare out. Can you do that?
I got a couple of questions. First, on the penny sales tax, is that a use it or lose it? We have to use it by a certain period of time?
No,
Anybody know that?
it's
No?
not use it or lose it. We can
Okay.
accumulate it, but
Okay.
it has to be utilized by a criteria.
I understand that, I just, do we have to put it in this budget, next budget, any time limit, carry it forward? Second question is, just occurred to me, has anybody priced out the cost of removing these humps in the event the residents decide, we don't like this?
What about that then?
Just curious.
Maybe we'll cross that hump when we get to it.
We have not priced it out, but it is a common occurrence.
Yeah, I know that.
By the way, Jeff, Mayor Pugh, if we're taking out East Anna, I know we're looking at a total price of $200,000, but that's the cost of the traffic calming on Beachway.
Is it?
Yeah. This is included in the 200.
Okay. I'm just saying we should probably wait for the main thoroughfare until after we get all the other deals.
We had talked on when the construction was going to begin on East Anna. And I thought that there was a change in mind that was so far down the road that we would go ahead and pave it. I mean, it was my original suggestion to hold off on it, but then we talked about the construction. Does anybody else remember that, or?
Yeah, but I thought we agreed with you that it was a good idea to hold off on it, because
Hold
once
off.
construction starts, it's gonna ruin the road
Yeah, it
anyway.
certainly will, yeah. But I thought the construction wasn't gonna start what it was I told. on the
We
plan.
don't know when the construction's gonna start yet. They have not even received their permissions from DEP to move forward. And then there's huge complications with the staging of the site, both on the building official and the PD side and the, everybody involved. So that's
Could very
still a
well end
ways
up into
down.
next year, next budget year?
Yeah.
or-
It's hard to predict what a state agency will take in order to
Okay.
approve something in the CCCL. It can be several months or several more months.
All right, so what direction do you need from us? You have the direction enough? Do we need a motion? We're gonna need motion to go ahead and accept the $200,000
Don, you complicated this, you make up the motion.
paving. It's just that you have to take off the streets we just were talking about.
Mhm.
Okay?
In other words, I think I heard you say you wanted to stick within the 200,000 appropriation and get as much done as we can on that, and then take into consideration a delay on Beachway until we resolve the traffic calming issues and the one-way status,
Right.
which
Now,
gives
that's
us a
just the
month or
main
so out.
thoroughfare, not the ancillary streets.
They're not on the current,
They're not on the first run.
they're not on the current
Yeah,
first
but it's
run.
just the one underneath of it, so you can move, it's like anything, move it up. One goes down, you move them up. But there's smaller streets too, so they won't take as much cost versus
True,
the
especially
main.
if they're done at the same time.
Right.
That helps eliminate mobilization, extra upcharges on that.
All right, so may I make a motion?
Okay, since I got, let me try this. I make a motion that we begin the milling and repaving of the streets as set forth in Phase 1, with the understanding that we stick to the $200,000 budget and hold off on East Anna Street until the next cycle.
Don't forget Beachway.
And hold off on, make Beachway the last street paved.
That
sounds right.
Yeah.
Sounds close.
Seconded?
All right, motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Adopt the penny sales tax revenue project list. Jamie?
Well, this is kind of a piggyback issue to what we were just talking about. There are various things we can do with the revenues from the countywide penny sales tax, which we get a small portion of, roughly estimated to be about $108,000 a year for the next 10 years. As we were just discussing, there's various eligible uses that could be applied here. One would be extending the amount of resurfacing we can do under our phased repavement plans. We can utilize it for street infrastructure, including traffic calming, amenities, signage, infrastructure projects around the town that are traffic and street related. We can earmark it towards the engineering and upgrade of stormwater catchment filtration infrastructure on the town streets. I put some examples there, some of the stuff we're doing infrastructurally down the road with the Woolbright detention area. I've had some requests towards the Bimini Cove Drive cul-de-sac and some upgrades there. And additionally, around the town, there are several catchment boxes. I think there's one on North Harbor, there's some down in the south end of town, where the historical infrastructure designed for stormwater treatment and gathering is undersized or underscaled for the need. Those are all eligible expenses. We talked about earlier that we'll be looking at the townwide replacement of the sign system. We've got quotes still coming in on that. That streetscape infrastructure could be directed in that area. And then any other projects that you might have as a priority or that you might direct. The Oversight Committee, which you appointed as the P&Z committee plus its alternates, acts as an ombudsman or audit committee to where you put these monies and just assures at the end of the budget fiscal year that wherever you expend these monies, if you expend them in that year, that they met the technical criteria and definition for those expenditures. I will comment that when we took this item to the first time to that committee, they kind of went off in all kinds of different directions above and beyond what I'm talking about in this shorter list here, which is debatably achievable or not. But you would be safe using infrastructure projects that are pretty standard. Things like police equipment, public safety buildings, storm, sewer, roads, all the kinds of infrastructure that are pretty typical to things that we would expend capital money on are all eligible expenses under the penny sales tax revenues. So it's just a matter of where you want to steer the money. As I think Mr. Cos asked, you're not obligated to spend it when you receive it. You can also bank it, but you are obligated to show its eligibility when you do go to expend it, in terms of it being applied to something that meets state statute under the infrastructure criteria.
Okay, so adopt the penny sales tax revenue project list. So what are we, if we're not spending it, right this minute, what are we adopting?
Okay, if I may,
Please.
you also have at your dais there this interlocal agreement between Ocean Ridge and Palm Beach County and the school board. And this is an interlocal agreement that we need to adopt tonight as well. In this interlocal agreement, because that sets forth the requirements of the county ordinance, how we can spend the funds, how we can set up the oversight committee and things like that. This first came, I think, in front of you back in July of last year, and I think just through maybe some miscommunication there, it wasn't brought back to you. So that's what we're doing now, is we're bringing this back to you where you need to adopt this. In this agreement, it talks about each municipality must adopt a project list. Now, you can change the project list, you can modify it, you can do however you want to with it. The only reason that we're talking about the project list is because it's in this interlocal agreement that we need to adopt.
So this is it?
Exactly. Well,
Okay.
this is the interlocal agreement. Now, you also need a separate motion to adopt to say, okay, here's the project list that we're also adopting, and I imagine the project list is, okay, we're using it for, the milling and paving, and you can add more things to it, you can take away, but we need to have an initial project list to comply with this interlocal
Okay,
agreement.
so there's two things.
Yes.
One, the interlocal agreement to vote on.
Yes,
then
and you need to approve
two
it.
is the list.
Yes.
So there's two things in this.
Yes, there is.
All right.
Yes, my apologies.
My question is, can we vote on the interlocal agreement when it's not on an action item? I mean, it's really not there.
What you can do is you can go ahead, I would request that we amend the agenda to include that, because when you were talking about it and I was looking at this item, I saw that there wasn't a mention to this on there. So my apologies again. Can someone amend the agenda to include this as part of item number 14, and then it'll be on the agenda, and then you can vote on it?
All right.
Isn't that something we should have done at the beginning?
Well, yes, sir, it
That's what he
was.
just said. He was,
Yes.
he's throwing himself on his sword. So is
All
there a
right,
motion?
I appreciate that, thank you. I move to amend the agenda to include adoption of the interlocal agreement among Palm Beach County, the School Board of Palm Beach County, Florida, and the signatory municipalities pertaining to the shared distribution and use of the 1 cent local government infrastructure surtax.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay,
Now,
next,
motion?
The list.
I move that we adopt the penny sales tax revenue project list.
Well, no, we should do the
Interlocal agreement first.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, now
We gotta-
first,
we gotta
and then we do the
agreement.
list.
You're right.
Yeah.
I move that we approve the interlocal agreement, which we've just amended our agenda to direct. That's
Second.
terrible English, isn't it? Well, it's late. I move to adopt the interlocal agreement.
Perfect.
Second.
Second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, and now,
I move to adopt the penny sales tax revenue project list set forth in June 5th, 2017, agenda memo item number 14.
I have a question.
we'll do that
Sorry,
after, there's gotta be a second. Is there a second?
Who wants a second?
No. Any?
There's no second to the list?
No.
What the list.
Well, there's a discussion,
I
and
mean,
if it
there's
doesn't
no,
pass,
there's
then-
no priority on the list.
Right.
Well, there is a list,
So
extending
it's just-
amount,
And also we
traffic
should mix
calming,
the sixth
engineering
one on the
upgrade.
list.
No, but
Wait,
there's not,
The list can be amended at any time. You're just approving a general list of what it is.
okay, I will second that.
Okay,
For discussion.
now discussion. Okay, so the list can be amended at any time.
Yes,
We
sir.
can take off what we want, we can put on what we want, as long as it's been approved and, or at least been approved by the whomever.
By you.
By us, right? At this point, it's by us, right? Because it's already gone through the P and Z, right?
This list is not really, this list is not something that P and Z would really look at or consider. This list is, once again, it is something that, pursuant to this interlocal agreement, we had to come up with, and it can be modified, amended, however this body sees fit.
For example, let's say next meeting, we want to spend 20,000 on speed hump on Ridge Boulevard.
And you want to use the
We
surtax
use the
funds.
surtax, we can amend the priority sales tax list, and then, so it doesn't make any difference that it's not on the list now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think it's,
Everybody understands, okay?
I don't think we can have number 6 on here. Because you're asking the commissions to vote for requests, but the oversight committee advisories, we have no idea what they are, and we have no idea if they match the criteria. So I would think that the list just has to be that top
Okay.
5.
I will amend my motion to remove the last two items, which are other priority projects as may be directed, and other priority projects as requested for consideration by the Oversight Committee advisors. And you have to
Do you really
second
want to,
this.
do you really want to take out other priority products,
We
maybe
can amend it,
directed?
yeah.
And there's an objection.
I have no idea what's on that list, I'm not gonna. A second.
Get it
All right,
passed.
there's a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Wait, a lot of something. Adopt the fiscal year 18 budget meeting calendar and prioritize capital expenditure items. Jamie?
This is a revisit of some of the discussion we had at the budget workshop. And you have in front of you just, you have a simplified spreadsheet passed out in front of you that might make it a little easier to follow the items that are listed. Oh, wait a minute, am I on the right? Sorry, yes, we'll do the budget meeting calendar first. Actually, Tracy, why don't you handle that since it's your memo there?
I'm gonna write this down somewhere.
The first phase of this item is to set the required budget meetings that we need to be trim compliant and avoid other taxing agencies and make sure we fall within the timelines as required for processing the budget adoption.
All right, there's two suggested motions on here.
Yeah.
Of the dates. Does anyone like to make a motion?
Well, don't we figure the dates?
Yeah, we need
Well,
we need to
they're
discuss the
suggesting-
August dates first.
There's blanks.
Well, if you read they're suggesting the first one, August 15th, beginning at 3 or 4 p.m., which coincides with the, I'm sorry, August 7th.
No, you're talking about that.
August 15th, following the budget workshop. Oh, I see, what you're saying is move the regular meeting to August 17th,
August 15th.
15th,
Yes.
from the 7th, and then do the budget workshop 3 to 4, and then the regular meeting at 6?
3, yeah,
Okay,
or 3 to whenever, and then start the regular meeting at 6. And that is to accommodate one of the commissioners that cannot make the August 7th meeting.
okay.
You guys can
Everybody
blame my
okay with-
wife for that, just letting you know,
All right.
on the 7th.
We're Full blame to the mayor's wife. I move.
I'm not here on September 11th. I'm getting way confused in this schedule. We have July 10th, right?
Yeah, we're up here, since one of the town commissioners be up August 7th meeting.
Okay, I'm
The
down.
regular dates we
I'm
hold,
down
we're
for
gonna be
budget.
August 15th, following a budget workshop meeting, 3 or 4 p.m. Go ahead, Jim, I'm sorry. You were saying something?
I was saying, fully blaming the mayor's wife
Yeah.
for this. I move to adopt FY 18 budget meeting dates as follows. Special meeting to certify rollback rate and set maximum millage rate on July 10 at 5:01 p.m. Budget workshops on August, that would be August 15, right? At 3 or 4 p.m., which is your pleasure. 4 p.m. And August, what's the second August date? At 4 p.m.? August, same date, August 4th? Wait a minute, we're doing,
Nope, you would set a second budget workshop meeting date, just tentative, in case you needed a second
okay,
workshop date.
so we can do it the following week, let's say
Well, that would be
August 22
second.
at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
The public hearing to adopt tentative millage and tentative budget on September 11th at 6 p.m. And public hearing to adopt final millage and final budget on September 21st at 6 p.m.
Wait, did you say you couldn't be here on the 11th?
11th and 9th.
When do you return?
15.
Wait a second, September.
September 15 is a Friday.
When is September 11th?
September 11 is a Monday. I think that was our regular meeting.
Isn't that
It
a
is
regular
your
meeting?
regular meeting,
That's a
yeah.
regular
We
meeting.
moved that Labor Day, yeah. And you're not gonna be here?
No.
Can we move it as late as September 18th, the following Monday?
But Steve,
That's
you're
too
out
late?
from the 1st to the 15th, right?
Correct.
So we have to do it without Steve at that point then, because you have to do 2 public hearings and you have a 15-day window in between the 2.
Oh.
So you wouldn't have enough time to hold both in September in that case.
So let's remove all of Steve Cos's priority items from the budget.
Where's our red pencil?
Yeah.
All right, so you go ahead and keep going
We
on
have
your,
to- On September 11th, 6 PM, and public hearing to adopt final millage and final budget on September 21st at 6 PM.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion regarding that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, and the second motion.
All right, let me read through this.
The second motion has to do with the priority list.
Do we really have to do that?
You don't have to, but we could certainly use some direction in trying to prioritize the number of capital investment projects that we might expend in the construction of the budget for this cycle, which exceeds perhaps the total amount of dollars significantly that you'll have to expend for that purpose. And on top of that, there are some large ticket items that have come before you on several occasions in different configurations and have had some consideration or have been sent away for further consideration or the like. So we're just trying to be sure that the priorities and the items that are listed, and again, I'll refer to the short spreadsheet you have in front of you because it lays it out in one column versus several pages. The backup for the agenda item has a lot of narrative about all the items, but if you just want to see the items in a list form and the estimated costs and some notes about where they stand in terms of their level of priority or how they're being viewed going into this, that'll give you some helpful direction. I would just comment that on that spreadsheet, the top half, or where the numbers run down the column, and you see a lot of like high priority per chief. Most of these items are already plugged in to the template budget as you've seen it in terms of some of these various pieces of equipment and outfitting for the police department. The $200,000 for the paving program and the $15,000 for the engineering on that. And then some other options as you go down that list are just delineated there as things that you might prioritize for us as important or not important to you. And then when you get down to the bottom quarter of the list, essentially, there are some proposals to add policing staff and/or reserves and/or a dispatcher position. And then way down at the bottom of the list is the really big ticket item that's been talked about on several occasions, and that's LPR systems, as well as commission chambers, media and audio, which we've designated as a low priority at this time. The LPR system, we need commission direction. The various positions for increased police coverage is a decision at the legislative level in terms of, from what you've heard about some of the issues and the desire of the community, if you want to go into some of those areas. We highly recommend the addition of a dispatcher, just so that we're not utilizing so much overtime and higher paid employees in order to fill gaps in the dispatching system. And then under the central section there, where you have machinery, equipment, bridges, landscaping, HVAC repair, carpet replacement, these are things that, while we have line items in the budget to address a number of these items, these are above and beyond those line items.
Well, shouldn't we, let me interrupt you.
Sure.
I mean, shouldn't we be putting the carpet into the budget as it would be a line item in the maintenance part of the town hall?
Leasehold improvements for
Yeah.
crying out loud.
Yeah, we can
I
work
mean,
that
that
right
there should
into
be
a
in there.
budgeted line item
The
to.
paint shouldn't even be on, I don't think that should be on the list. I don't think the carpet should be on the list. I think that should be in the budget already. The HVAC, it's gotta be replaced, so that should be on
We
other
do, we
budget.
do have HVAC in
Repair
there.
and maintenance,
Chairs should be in there?
yeah.
I mean, that's,
I mean, to me,
What I'm
the
finding with
carpet-
the HVAC is we're replacing
Yeah, but that-
units faster than we budgeted for because they were all configured on this building at the same time.
Right, but that should be still under that's the general repair and maintenance, because it's gotta be fixed. It's not a high priority, I mean, it's a priority, it's, something has to be done. To me.
We can simplify that by moving those just into already budgeted line items and just reflect that in your next version of the budget document.
I mean, that's, in my opinion, those things should be already in the budget.
Right.
I mean, annualized road repair and paving engineering. What do you,
I'll,
Tom?
I'll make a motion for discussion that we, I think the police cruiser has already been approved. But I would say that we need to give the chief another dispatcher. So that would be a priority.
That's not my fault.
I'm somewhat confused on, he's got 2 officers or 1 officer and a reserve officer. I know the problems that we've been having with the additional patrolmen on the weekends and whatnot could be handled if we had an additional officer on staff. So my question is to the chief, can we hire 1 additional police officer and accomplish on those weekends the extra beach patrols that we need for the beach itself and for Old Ocean Avenue? Or do we need to have 1 officer and a reserve officer? But I'm in favor of doing a dispatcher, and I'm in favor of adding an officer.
The dispatcher aside, because that's a separate,
Yeah.
completely separate
So you
issue.
need 2 now. You
So-
need to replace the one that just didn't make it, and you need 1 additional on top of that.
So what I would like to accomplish is replace the dispatcher that we have a vacancy for right now. I would have liked to have done that tonight,
Yes.
I have to tell you. That brings us to what has been traditional normal strength. We've struggled with that, so I would ask that October 1st, consideration be given to adding an additional
Second.
dispatcher in that. That's separate from the police officer positions. The proposal I gave you regarding the police officers, I gave you basically 3 options, which are really 4. One was a costing out of putting 2 additional officers on. I've pledged to have them on the day shift platoons because they work opposite weekends with the current schedule that is contracted, the 12-hour days. So that guarantees us that we have an additional person on each of those weekends. The next was that we have perhaps, if the budget wouldn't allow that, we have 1, and that we consider paying our reserve officers, as some other agencies do, a set rate, with or without benefits, depending upon the commission. The next option for you was dependent upon cost, because there are a lot of things in this budget that are a very high priority to the town. At this point, I think we discussed some of them earlier on. And then finally, option number 4 is to leave things the way they are.
Okay.
So how do you feel about doing that? That was the reason you gave, we're giving the option.
We got it.
We got it, okay? My suggestion is that, let's just adopt everything in the order of the prioritization list, put it in the budget, see how the budget shakes out, and then as we do the budget, we can say, it should be someplace else, or yay or nay, or, 1 officer or 1-year commitment. That's my suggestion. So I move that we put all these budget items to be prioritized by the town commission in that motion. I move to adopt the FY18 capital items priority list as follows. All the items listed in FY18 budget items to be prioritized by the town commission in the handout for tonight's meeting agenda item number 15.
Is there a second?
this isn't the place to discuss all
Okay,
that.
second.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would,
Like
well,
ridiculous.
I
We
would,
should discuss
yes,
it before
with
we make
the,
the
with the
motion.
condition
Wait,
that,
And then you vote on, that's when it gets killed.
But we see
I need
the
to-
effect on the
Here,
overall
we got a
budget.
second. Let's have a discussion. Go ahead, Don.
I need to get the infrastructure added for the drainage and whatnot. That's not, I don't see that on the list.
Would that be under the priority list for the sales tax money?
Well, yes, it would be. I mean, you've got annualized road repair and paving, 200,000. What I'm suggesting is that we need to have some budget specifically set aside.
Don, you have
to handle
6,000 for stormwater Woolbright detention facility. If you don't think that's enough, you can bring it up at the budget and say, I don't think 6,000 is enough, I
Okay.
want $100,000, or whatever you think the item is.
Okay.
That's why, I mean, that's why we're,
I will go along with that.
then, you know, this is
I'll
just,
give you a second.
okay.
Okay, so I was gone for a couple minutes there. Did we take taser weapons, move them way
We're doing,
down?
we're just doing everything right now.
Yeah, but this is a priority list, so now Jamie's gonna go
I
and
underst-
start spending money
He's
on
not
the items
spending
at the
money.
top
This
of-
is
spending
Excuse
money.
me, excuse me. He's got a budget starting at the top of the list, when actually the top of the list isn't what the commission wants to spend money on.
Steve, go ahead.
Everything is going to be put into the budget, so we see a bottom line, what all the goodies, the high priority, low priority, cost us. And then we go through the budget and we say, no, this is too expensive.
Okay.
This is something we don't want, this is something we do want.
Yeah, because how can you really,
Would it
This
be-
is not the right time and place to.
Would it be possible, and I'm gonna ask a question out of being naive, would it be possible for the commissioners to take this particular list away, knowing that we would ask you to prioritize it and give us your priorities of this individually? And that way, if everybody's single priority is one particular item, we know that that's it. And then when the budget workshop comes, you can discuss all of these things individually. But perhaps if you sent back just, this is my 1, 2, 3, how I want to see it. If everybody's in agreement, that's great. If they're not, then you could hash out what your disagreement was, perhaps between now and the next budget year.
well, see, I disagree with that, and the reason being is because the budget is a public process, okay? And the public process is the people sitting in the audience can hear exactly what our thinking is as to why we want something and why we don't want something. And you start writing lists and sending it, the public has no idea what,
And I would
So-
not, I would never suggest that you would send us a list and we wouldn't discuss it, but it may help us to organize this rather than.
And,
we do
and,
tonight.
you know, what Jamie is really asking us to do, or the staff is asking us to do, is give a list of priorities that really isn't on the agenda, that wasn't published. So like, we got 5 people sitting here, that, you know,
It's on the agenda, Jim.
what?
it does says prioritize capital expenditure
Oh, I'm
items.
sorry.
But what I'm saying is,
Take that back.
I think if you have a number, and you have, okay, this is what we have, this is what we want to put in there, this is the bottom line, this is what it's going to do to our millage rate, and then you say, okay, fine, now, this is what we want to do, this is what we don't want to do, and that's the whole point of the budget workshop. So, I don't understand, I mean, I'm not picking, like a cherry picking, like a menu from point 1A and B.
We gotta see how the whole thing fits together. Like, you know, Don pointed out, he wants more money, you know, and that's probably a good idea. More money for the Woolbright detention facility. But, you know, this is not the place to argue that, and number one. Number two, it might be high priority, you know, if he's got, you know, 60,000 in there, he might not even want to talk about 6,000. I mean, I don't know, but that's the point.
All right, so is there any more discussion on that? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, moving on to the next. Discussion regarding code enforcement fines. Hal?
The commission requested that at the last regular commission meeting, that you be provided with the current code enforcement fine levels in the ordinances so that you could discuss whether there was need for change in association with a lot of the discussions that we've had recently. I've attached those by copying from the ordinance to give you an idea of how things work, and I will defer to the attorney on direction as to whether they can be changed and the proper method to change them if you wish to.
Well, I know, Steve, don't you want a 1,000 per occurrence stopping and stopping at your and that's for the non-residents
For
only?
you. Was it Dr. Evil?
Yeah.
A gazillion dollars.
You won't need that if it's on your little golf cart down there.
All right, so what,
I believe.
Ray, are
if-
our fines commensurate with what's going on?
From my review, our fine schedule seems to be in line with everyone else's in the general area. They seem to be appropriate. I would caution raising something too high, and having a negative impact on our ability to enforce and raising costs for us to go with the attorney and do these. These seem to be appropriate, for the town. And understanding that if we raise something to $1 gazillion, it may affect a resident, just as well as it will anyone else. So we need to make sure that we're looking at this globally.
All right, so is this something we'd have to, it says discussion, is this a vote, something I'd vote on? If we already have it in place, what are we voting on?
You asked me to give you a report.
It's just an
and-
update.
Okay.
And there was some discussion earlier about perhaps
Okay.
adding a specific fine for a specific infraction. I think that perhaps we should place the sign and see how many infractions we have that we can enforce with that, and if it's an absolute necessity, I believe that would kick in a ordinance change, which the cost-benefit analysis may not weigh out.
Thank you, Chief.
So, bottom line is we're not voting on anything? in
No,
this?
just
Okay,
thing the same.
thank
All
you.
right, moving on to the last item on our agenda. Ordinance number 623. Tracy, would you please read the ordinance?
Yes, Mayor. An ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 1-3, Definitions, amending Chapter 66, Environmental Regulations, by repealing Article 2, Flood Damage Prevention, and enacting a new Article 2, Floodplain Management, to adopt flood hazard maps, to designate a floodplain administrator, to adopt procedures and criteria for development in flood hazard areas and for other purposes, and amending Chapter 67, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 3, Technical Codes and Other Construction Standards, Division 1 generally, to clarify the minimum floor elevation and to adopt technical amendments to the Florida Building Code, providing for codification, conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Jamie, or Brian, rather, you want to give us a quick
Okay,
update on
yes, very quickly, this, I know I've spoken I think to most of you all individually. This is an ordinance that you really need to adopt. It's required by the State Floodplain Coordinator. This is a template of what they are having all the municipalities in the state of Florida adopt. And this is in order to try to, I guess, have everyone on the same playing field when it comes to the Florida Building Code, and to get closer to the Florida Building Code as far as using those regulations for minimum floor elevations and things of that nature. In doing this and in looking at this, we have modified certain things in Chapter 67, which we have not modified, or we have not changed our minimum floor elevation. We kept it the same. And so we need to go ahead and adopt this in order to be in compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program. If we do not adopt this, there are certain things that as far as having homeowners being able to get flood insurance or to file claims and things like that, it could impact that. And we need to adopt this prior to October, or really as soon as possible, so we can notify them that we've adopted this and it will not have any impact on their residents. So, I don't know if you've got any specific questions.
Just one quick question for you, Brian. Are you sure that this ordinance will meet the requirements for the new NFIP standards?
Yes, I mean, this came from, I've been in contact with the State Floodplain Coordinator on numerous occasions on this, passing this back and forth with them to make sure I got their official okey-dokey on it before we came forward.
Okay, I move that we adopt ordinance number 623 as set forth in item number 17 for the town meeting of June 5, 2017.
Second.
So, is there a second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and I was wrong, we have one more item. Your item, you moved it from the consent agenda to
Yes.
I move that we talk about this next meeting.
I make a motion that we defer.
Is that what you want to do?
Oh,
I mean, it's up to you. If you're
Yeah.
tired, then we'll just drop it. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be.
Well, that's fine. Then we'll just move it
Is
to
there something that we need to address now, town attorney?
No.
Well,
No, these are,
Okay.
just by brief comment, these are modifications of existing job descriptions with realignments and additional provisions. You can adopt them at any time. It sounds like you want to do some editing to them. I would recommend
I
that
had
you
no
all get.
hearing this morning, so I've been going since 7.
well, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
All right, so hearing that, then
I
meeting,
moved
you don't have to.
Don't have to move? Okay.
Hearing that, meeting adjourned.